Hello and welcome to Dark Alignment Podcast. I am Brittney.
And I'm Eruca Rose.
And we are a true crime plus astrology podcast. Plus. It's
I've never heard you say it that way.
You know, I have never said it that way, actually. I don't know why. I just did. But this episode, we are doing season 3, episode 7, by the way. Can you believe we're almost done with this season? It's kind of wild.
We're past the halfway.
Yeah, we're past the halfway mark for the season. It just feels like it's gone by really fast. But tonight we are covering the very first cult in America and our first cult story, the Manson family. So we're gonna have a good time. Last time we were here, we covered the Zodiac killer, and we had a good time speculating about who it was because it is still an unsolved case.
Zodiac killer, maybe.
Did
you like how I said that?
Yeah, that made me. I put "Call Me Maybe" to it on our post. I was like, this is the song we need.
I didn't tell you I was gonna do it. I just did it.
It made me really happy when I realized that's what you had done. We don't usually discuss our media things before we do it. We kind of surprise each other, and it's like a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, there's something new on Dark Alignment," and
I like it a lot.
We do this to each other. It's a game we play. It's a good time. But this is behind the scenes. Speaking of behind the scenes, Patreon has been hanging out with us for, I don't know, the last 20 minutes or
maybe
so.
30.
Behind the scene, getting everything set up, kind of having some fun back and forth. Patreon.
We got to introduce Brittney to a TikTok trend, and you guys have to see that. It's great.
I did not enjoy it. Spoiler alert, I didn't enjoy it.
She's gonna warm up.
I was subjected to it. But the episode before that, definitely, if you have not listened to season 3, episode 5, The Astrology of Brittney Spears, you need to, because the full-on sister war on social media right now is out of control. If you haven't been keeping up with Jamie Lynn and Brittney and their back and forth, we cover their charts.
I need you to update me after this.
Okay. We cover their charts extensively. Maybe we'll do a quick Patreon update after the episode. Yeah, Patreon, because you get more. Patreon's always getting more and more things. So the weeks we are not putting out episodes, we are putting out Patreon episodes, and you can join. We have 3 levels. We've got merchandise. All of that's on our website at darkalignmentpodcast.com. You can support the podcast for free as well. So you can you can follow, you can subscribe, you can rate, and you can review. And you can also now review on Spotify. So if you have the ability to review or leave a comment, tell us your favorite food and your Venus placement. We want to know those 2 things.
Also on Patreon, they can get access to our archives of all the notes, all of Brittney's incredible notes, and all of the charts if you want to have the visual when you listen to the episodes. I believe that is for the top chart bitches that get that. Those top chart bitches get that.
Yeah, we also have the Murder Moons and the Pod Snacks. So check that out. All on our website. We still have stickers and candles and cool shit on there too. But we've got a lot to cover in this episode. We have a lot of charts to look at. Everybody has a fucking birth time.
All of them have birth times, and I looked at these people, and I was like, none of them are gonna have a birth time. I don't think any of them, and all of them did.
We've never had that happen, especially with covering so many people in this episode. This is super, super exciting. So we're gonna have really in-depth info on the charts. And we have divided this up into kind of chunks of how we're going to talk about this story, because there's a lot here. We aren't going to go heavily into detail about the actual crimes or, the gory stuff. I feel like everybody kind of knows that. If not, there's plenty of places you can find that out. We're looking more into the individuals, kind of how they got involved in this, how they fell into it. So starting with sources. Wikipedia, of course. Wiki, please donate if you use Wikipedia. And the Helter Skelter Forum had a lot of good info. The Biography Channel had excellent documentaries. The Manson Girls documentary is fabulous. Really enjoyed that one. And another one called The Family Inside the Manson Cult. So I also watched a lot of interviews with former family members. And that was just a lot of interesting insight that we're going to get into. But trigger warning. This is our first...
Trigger warning now.
Yes.
Right now. This is it.
This is it. You've been warned. So you don't have to keep going on this journey with us. We're going to have a good time if you want to go. But now's your chance to get out of the car. If you're not
Hop
interested.
On out. If you're not on the Manson fam train.
If you get car sick and you can't handle this ride, it's going to get bumpy, y'all.
The rest of you keep all arms and legs hands,
appendages,
noses,
inside
hair,
this vehicle, or get out right now because we're full speed ahead into a murderous cult, and we will be talking about some triggery things. I'll continue to give trigger warnings before some of the areas that I felt needed them.
Needed extra.
I sprinkled them throughout here just to kind of remind people, if you're a sensitive listener, you don't want to hear a certain part, I do give some heads up in there. So, bitches to chart on this podcast. We're covering the Manson girls. We're covering Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten, Lynette Squeaky Fromm in detail. We are also going to be charting up Manson boy. I can't even say it. Do you want to say it?
The Manson boy.
There you go.
Manson boy.
Oh my god, okay.
The Manson girls with the Manson boy.
I can't even. Okay. So we will also be covering Charles Tex Watson, and he is the only male involved in the murders that were committed by the family. So he's pretty significant. We're going to be touching, of course, on Charles Manson's chart because we have to, but we hate his face, so please be
Keep
aware.
that in mind.
We hate his face. We will really be looking at him largely through the lens of one of his followers, Linda Kasabian, since her testimony was instrumental in building the case against the other family members.
And his chart is insane. So we will go through all of that.
Okay. This is going to be good. So we're going to start with just a quick overview. We've been through all the warnings, all the things. Here we go. So the Manson family was a commune and kind of like a gang, and led by Charles Manson in California in the late 1960s and early 70s. They're most well known for the murders that they committed because they were just extremely gruesome, extremely violent, and very dramatic with kind of the way they left the scenes. So the Tate-LaBianca murders were a series of brutal killings perpetrated by members of the family. The first event, they killed 5 people on the night of August 8th, including 8-month pregnant actress Sharon Tate and several of her friends, including the heiress to the Folgers coffee fortune, Abigail Folger. There were a lot of famous and very, kind of fancier, well-to-do people. So when this crime was committed, people really knew about it. It wasn't a house full of just random people. It was well-known people. So definitely, It was also just extremely gruesome. And Sharon Tate's husband was Roman Polanski, the film director. So he was not home that night. He was actually working on a film in Europe. So he was out of town, which is why she had her friends there. Because she was, pregnant and didn't want to be by herself while her husband's out of town. So, but that is the only reason that he was not also a victim of this, most likely. So, Charles Manson, this is interesting. He was an aspiring musician, and he tried to get a recording contract with record producer Terry Melcher, and he had previously rented the house on Cielo Drive that Sharon Tate lived in, and that was his motive. That's why that house was targeted specifically. Really? So it was like a symbolic thing to him. Like, it was really not about who lived there. It just happened to be all of those people there that night. He also hoped that these crimes would start a race war, which is fucking stupid. But he was allegedly pretty displeased with how messy everything got with the victims in the Tate murders. So he assisted in prepping the scene for the LaBianca murders the next night.
Oh, like literally messy, not like, oh, this is too much for me.
Everything about it. Written everything about it, like literally messy, but also the fact that some victims were killed in the front lawn after trying to run away, and like there was a lot going on. Like they didn't have control of the scene, is how Manson felt, looking back at it. So with the LaBianca murders, the very next night, they targeted this married couple. They owned a local supermarket. Manson actually went to a party at the house next door to them like a year earlier, so that's how he knew about this house. So it's all just kind of by chance that he chose these people. But because he didn't feel they had control of the scene at the last crime, he went on this one, and he was the first one to go inside. So he went up the driveway, and he came back and let everybody know, hey, everyone inside is tied up. Now go. So he went in himself, controlled the scene, didn't get his hands actually dirty, went back out and sent his followers inside. They went in, they slaughtered everyone. They smeared messages all over the walls and the doors during both crimes. They said things like death to pigs and pig, and the word rise was on one of the walls in the victim's blood. Like, they're doing this with their hands and, like, writing on. So, it just was really fucking horrific. And the whole idea was to scare people. Like, it was supposed to strike fear into people, and also to make people, to try to convince people that there was some sort of a race war
coming on.
So that was, again, the whole concept behind it, was to start some sort of big social issue. Like, he was trying to cause a social uprising. But in total, Manson's group had around 100 followers. They lived in, like, a hippie culture, this unconventional lifestyle, and that was extremely popular back then. Like, this was during the free love Woodstock movement. So there's lots of hallucinogens involved, lots of LSD involved. So people are in an altered state anyway. They're more susceptible in general based on that. And most of his followers were young women from middle-class families, very average suburban upbringings. And we'll talk about that when we get into the girls.
It's so fascinating how they were drawn to this and how...
Yes. Yeah. But it makes sense because the world at the time was so uncertain, and like these people like didn't have a lot of direction and were looking and seeking something. And Linda Kasabian, when we get to her section, really goes into that. On exactly what she was seeking and what she found through the family. So really, really fascinating insight. So we'll get into all of that here in a minute. But they were all very vulnerable. And Manson to them seemed like this revolutionary spirit. He was much older than them. Much older. Yes, we'll talk about his age and everything. But he was 32 when he got out of prison and started his cult around this. And his followers were late teens, early 20s. So he seemed like this older, wiser... very profound individual. So, they were looking for family, community, identity, direction, a place to belong. Like, they were trying to find themselves, really, like most young adults.
Too, yeah.
Yes, and this is a quote that really is interesting about what Manson says about his followers. He says, "You threw them out, and I took them in." Because he refers to his followers as America's children. Like,
okay.
Yeah. So, here we go. Manson Trash is the name of this section. So, we're going to talk about a little bit about how he grew up, a lot more about just, here we go. We're just going to go. Okay, Charles Manson had a pretty rough life growing up. He found himself in trouble a whole lot, in and out of jail, for crimes including forgery and pimping, which I found very interesting.
Yeah.
So when he was 12, that's when he first started getting in trouble. He robbed a grocery store. So at 12, he's already committing...
That's so young.
Pretty significant crimes. That's like a 7th grader. That's like a fucking 7th grader robbing the store. He ended up in prison, in and out his whole life, and later he was involved in a sexual assault while he was in prison. So trigger warning. He actually sodomized another inmate at knife point. So major control issues. You can see that's what that's about. That's about fear. That's about control. It's not necessarily about sex or sexuality. It's dominance and control is what an act like that is about. Like, I can do anything I want. So there's also a huge sense of entitlement, but like really wanting lots of power, lots of control over another person. So... he was super terrible. Like I said, he was 32 when he got out of prison.
Okay.
And he just ended up being this like master manipulator of all these young people. And it did have a lot to do with the amounts of hallucinogens they were all doing at the time. So in the family, one of the things he would do is he would give everybody LSD and he would take much less than them. So he's like microdosing while everybody else is like tripping their faces off. So obviously he's got the upper hand.
Right.
And is in control of the environment. So he would preach to them and say things like, man invented time, and it would be these things that made him think he was this profound genius. Like, he was just so smart.
Like, he was woke, and they were high, and he can slip in enough other things.
Yes.
His own wants.
He told them they were living in the now and that time no longer existed, and they were not allowed to have watches at the ranch. We'll talk about the ranch here in a second, but watches were not allowed because man invented time. Time isn't real. like, whole thing.
That's also an element of, like, not mind control, like brainwashing and stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The time thing.
He was also known to do things to test the devotion of his followers, which is pretty fucked up. So he did it one by one. He would literally throw hatchets at them, like at their heads, and say things like, "Do you love me? And do you love me enough to die for me?" And like majorly getting them to be fully like committed to him and trusting that he was this prophet. He would say he was Jesus Christ. He would say he was all sorts of things. Actually, in an interview I watched with him the other day, he said all men are Jesus Christ. Like, he was just like, yeah, that's exactly it, man. Like, and he even talks like, the way he talks annoys the shit out of me. You heard him talk earlier.
I will listen.
You will probably laugh because it sounds like a guy on the beach. Like,
I heard someone who, after I took like my notes and stuff and I was watching, I heard one of those people mention the way he would kind of like speak, and I haven't seen it, but I've heard people talk about it.
It's like, really funny. I mean, it's almost just like, yeah, man, like Cheech and Chong kind of. It kind of has that vibe to it. It's like that era. Like, it has this like, yeah, man, like I'm a surfer, man, like kind of vibe to it. So it's real weird, especially when he says like stupid stuff. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the ranch, which is where they all lived. So, fun fact, after an interesting run-in with a beach boy, we're going to talk more in detail about this later, Charles Manson established a base for the family at a place called Spahn Ranch, and he did this in August of 1968. It was actually an old abandoned movie set. So they were all living on this like big abandoned movie set, and the female members of the family did chores around the ranch, and occasionally Manson instructed them to have sex with the 80-year-old owner of the ranch, George Spahn. So he was nearly blind, feeble, old man, but, you know, the women also acted as seeing eye guides for him, so he found them really useful. He found the family beneficial, which is why he let them all live on the ranch for free, because he was getting to have sex with these young women, and they like did stuff for him, and they did. Yeah, they were like,
wow, what a good deal! What a great deal!
Yeah, they're like basically caretakers of this ranch. He doesn't have to pay them, and yeah, it's kind of like a working. It's a strategic business model.
Wow,
is what it is.
Wow.
So that's an interesting setup of just like imagining this is the commune. This is where they're living. So it's private property also. It's a gentleman who owns it. So they're on a private ranch, able to do this. It's kind of like out in the desert. It's not in an area that's well populated. It just kind of looks dusty, dirty, like they're just doing their thing. They're just living their life out there. So we're going to get into Linda Kasabian's insight on Charles Manson. So this is really fascinating. She was really excellent to hear speak and talk about all of this. So she was one of the Manson girls who did participate in the Tate murders. She actually did participate. They all did.
Every time you say Manson girl, it's in my head.
No.
Manson girl.
I love it. I just love it when you do it. I don't love the trend at all.
I'll put out a music video.
Yeah, please do. I
don't be on TikTok.
Yes. That's exactly it. Just to watch you, because you're super entertaining on there. But okay, back to Linda. So all of the charges against her were dropped in exchange for her testimony.
Whoa!
So she's the only one who's not like on trial with the other girls, which is why we're not covering her in that section.
Yes. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I know, twists and turns, girl. I got you. So we had to talk about her, obviously, for that reason. But we're going to start with how she got into the family. So, she was 20. It's 1969. She was going through a breakup with her husband. So, going through a divorce, like, really hard times. She ended up moving out of her home, living with a friend. And this friend lives on Manson's commune. So, she's just like, kind of just ends up drifting over there, like friend of a friend, like I've got a spot, come have this freedom, you've been going through a lot, like come live this free love lifestyle right now. And when she left, she was looking for love, freedom, and God. So she was seeking something spiritual. This is really the right type of vulnerability to be susceptible to a cult, like somebody who's really seeking something like this is going to find it, and definitely found it in this small knit community here. So she was excited about the life she was going to have on the ranch. She was excited to be around people with the same thought patterns, like-minded people. One of the documentaries I watched was basically she was like talking the whole time, like the narrator, and telling her story through the whole thing. So she said everyone was happy to see her when she arrived. Perfect strangers. So happy to see her when she arrived. And they made her feel really wanted. So this is a really common thing, part of the grooming process for cults. They want to make you feel special and seen and loved. And the outside world doesn't love you. We love you. And we're so happy to see you. And welcome to the family.
We don't know you at all, but we love you.
Welcome to the family. So that warm, loving welcomeness is part of the grooming process. So she also hadn't met Charles Manson yet. But she just was hearing how wonderful he was. And, like, her early experiences on the ranch were great. Like, she really enjoyed her life. The community was, like, loving and caring and, like, this conscious community. She talked about having a major attraction to Tex, which is interesting.
Okay.
We're going to obviously talk about him later. The two of them had a sexual relationship. And she said no one ever made her feel the way he did. Like, that was, like, her guy. And the family often participated in planned orgies fueled by LSD. So they're having
fun times.
But they only dated or like kind of were exclusive with whoever Manson said. Oh. So he kind of like assigned who belonged to who. That he was very much in charge.
Would he create conflict with that?
I don't believe so. I think you were just promised to somebody. Oh. He just promised you to somebody.
Okay.
And so you couldn't like anybody else or like... He just kind of paired...
But she liked Tex.
Right, but that's who she was paired with also.
She was also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So I feel like he did it out of like... I think it seems like he was trying to...
He was thoughtful?
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if he thought that like... I don't know what type of control... There's got to be a reason for why he would do that. Probably just he wanted them all to trust and believe him, so he's going to put them with people they're compatible with. They're going to be happy.
If he creates conflict, it'd be against him.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's some good insight though. Yeah. Like, it doesn't sound like he did that at all. It sounds like he matched them with people that they were attracted to and liked, and not like making them do anything they didn't want to do. I think he always wanted them to believe that it was their will and not his. And even in his interviews, like he denies responsibility to a level of ridiculousness, saying they might have thought that I was instructing them, but I was not. No, they did that on their own. Like, that's how he frames it. He takes no fucking responsibility for any of it. I wasn't there. I didn't do it. I didn't tell them to do it. They did that on their own accord. They might have thought that I instructed. Like, it's nuts to hear
I just set up a scene for them, and then
I just went in and tied everybody up, and then I was just gonna leave. They were like, no, we have to do something, and they rushed in. I couldn't stop them. That's his narrative. Like, it's really fucking gross.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. So, he was in control of everything. It is a control thing of saying you go with this person, even if it is in, like, the other person's best interest. He still is
he has the say.
Yep, he's approving. Almost like dad has to approve kind of vibe of who you're dating, which is weird. So... Linda still recalls all of this as being very spiritual and beautiful at the time, like even the orgies and everything. Like, nothing was non-consensual. She felt like everything was extremely consensual. Everyone was happy. Everybody was down with this lifestyle. Like, so that's at least good when you compare it to other cults where there's actual assault and people. I mean, obviously they're on drugs, but it's. I don't know. They seemed consenting to what the activity, and even looking back, she's saying, like, wow, it was a great experience. So, I don't know. I wasn't there. But Charles Manson did use sexuality to break down the ego. That was a big strategy for him, for the brainwashing, for the mind control. It just, like, made his followers trust him more in the long run. Like, he was part of all of this. It's a different level of intimacy, like... when sex is involved, and if you're making it positive and pleasurable.
Chart, I promise.
Oh, I can't wait.
It makes sense.
He's just making it like a joyful experience and like enjoying the sexuality. So it's like he's even more trusted. He's even more trusted as this loving person who has our best interest at heart. It's so, it's so beyond anything I can even imagine. He even convinced his followers that he was both the second coming of Christ and the devil at the same time. He's both.
Well, just everyone is probably both.
That's exactly, I was about to say that. That's how he frames it. So,
I even see his like how he got there in his head. It's just like,
I love this. I don't know if you can see much of this on the chart, but his obsession with the racial war stuff that he was trying to start is because he was extremely racist himself.
Yeah.
Super, super racist. He thought that whites were superior to everyone, and he used the Bible and songs by the Beatles as the basis of all of his ideology. So everything he says come from these two things. So when the Beatles' White Album came out, Manson was super obsessed. He thought they had tapped into his spirit with the record and like created it about him. So
everything is about him.
Super self-centered, like complete ego fucking maniac, trying to break down the ego of everybody else when he's like fucking maniac here. He thought every song was about him and the family. So he interpreted the song Helter Skelter as a rising of the whites. So he's nuts. He's just like super nuts. And the fact that it was called the White Album, like he turned it into, he found all these things that weren't actually there. And Manson always wanted to become a famous musician, so it makes sense that he would obsess and fixate on these messages and like believe they were directed him through music, because that's how everything speaks to him. And Linda vividly described how everything went down on the night of the Tate murders in this documentary too, and it's super, super intense. We'll go into that when we get into the Manson girls, but we are ready to chart the biggest bitch of them all, which is Charles Manson.
Mr. Bitch.
Mr. Bitch Trash. Let's see what we have going on. Do you like that one?
I liked that one.
Okay.
I really liked that one. Okay. All right. Astrology of cult leaders. We're gonna do like a little briefing.
Overview.
Briefing.
Excited.
So there's some components to being a good cult leader. You know, you gotta have the magnetism. You gotta have that charm, the charisma, the deception. It's like this captivating, hypnotizing thing. You have to have the want to be that authoritative, controlling leader.
Man, that's a lot of qualities. That's a lot of qualities.
Power.
Yeah.
And you got to take action on those beliefs that you have, and on yourself. You know, like you gotta. It's not enough just to want these things, and to draw people in. You have to take like this strong action on what you want. So
this makes sense.
When you break it down astrologically, like there's definitely some themes that we see, like the magnetism and the deception and like the charm, like that can come through a lot with like Scorpio, maybe a little bit of Sag, Leo energy. Pluto has a lot to do with like the power and control, and also like the deception, because Pluto, a lot of people associate it with Hades, where he drugged Persephone down, and then you know all of the story. And I'm not going to tell you the story.
Look it up.
You don't.
It's a good story.
Google it.
Google it.
And then with that control and power, we see that a lot with like these like people with Mars issues. Also the action that I was talking about, Mars issues. Aquarius can also kind of want to be that kind of like leader in that way, this aspirational leader with that kind of power. Capricorn as well, but I think you don't see Capricorn as often with cult leaders, because Capricorn really wants to do the work to build something, where Aquarius might want to just kind of like innovatively jump into it, like and like usually have like an idealistic like message underneath.
I have thoughts on a Capricorn in a cult. I feel like a Capricorn in a cult could be a really good like soldier energy for the leader, and be like a really good right hand, and somebody who wants to kind of do the work and like help to build it, and like help to kind of like really work on the structure.
That would be good.
So I wonder if anybody in our lineup would have
been Capricorn.
Because I do have an idea on somebody who I think might have strong Capricorn placements based on like kind of what you're talking about. I'm kind of trying to place some of the personalities of the girls and the followers. Okay. So we'll see if they're there.
Let me know if you see anything.
Yeah, I'm speculating on which people might have some heavy, strong, like good cap placements that fall into this category. I don't know if I want to say who it is yet.
I could also see maybe like, Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Then let's see. Where was I? And then more with the action and on their beliefs and themselves, kind of ego-driven action as well. More Leo, we see Leo influence with that. Maybe some 5th house, maybe. It just kind of would have to lay out the right way. Where Leo can really have that like, they want to be like worship, that spotlight kind of.
Worshipped!
Like they feel like this is my place in the world everyone to be looking at me, the sun is shining on me and through me and all of this.
Oh God. That was definitely Manson. He really thought that. He really felt.
Yeah. Aquarius also, they can get really like they're fixed. It's a fixed sign. They can be really, especially if it has to do with like activism, like an ideal, like wanting to bring a concept or a belief into existence. Like Aquarius can also get really like fixated on making something happen.
Okay.
Aquarius energy, and they really want to do it as like a collective. So having, again, you get like that, I'm gonna gain support, I'm gonna like have all of these people like come together and like support my ideal, like, so that's also part of that.
I need a fan club. I need followers in a community.
Of course, like Mars shit with this, again, like the taking that action, and with on the beliefs end of this as well, like we will also see like Neptune issues, like they kind of create this like hazy image of the person, but also like hazy belief, like they kind of get like drawn into this Neptunian, like almost illusionary thing. And Neptune also can show a lot of idealized, like heavy idealism, like seeing someone as a god. Like if you remember back to the Witch Trials episode, like we talked about how the Pisces Virgo axis has a lot to do with like humans and God, and like how Pisces, something can become kind of godlike. It's the oldest sign in the zodiac. It's the one that's like transcendent into the next like realm or next life or whatever, one foot out the door on life kind of feeling. So the Neptune issues can bring people kind of projecting what they want onto this person to the level of them being like the savior, the the second coming, or God, or their what's it called when somebody has a message from God?
A
prophet, yeah, something like that. So having some Neptune issues would also help your cult life, your cult goals.
So if you're looking to start a cult, take a glance at your chart.
Yeah, that's what this is for. No,
that's so
great. So looking, after saying all of that, we see a lot of the Leo Aquarius axis coming into play with the cult leaders. We can see Pholus coming in, like chiming in and being in a really strong or pointed place, making all of their thoughts and actions really excessive, because I feel like you have to really want to go far with this to like bring a whole group of people together to do this. It's not like I have my beliefs and like I don't want to put it on anybody else and I'm just gonna like hang out. It's not like that. Like no. This is we're excessive with this. Everybody has to agree. Like I'm gonna put it on everybody, and like I'm gonna even maybe kill because of it. So, traumatize people, whatever I'd have to do.
It's crazy.
We also see them like kind of running from a Chiron placement. They're kind of jumping to heal themselves and everyone else at the same time. But it's kind of haphazardly or quickly, I could see Ceres also being in like a community type placement, like, or something like with like the self-power, idealism, God type thing, kind of placement. We can see a lot like them twisting these really big beliefs that they have into a family like atmosphere where they become the God. So this will light up like 12th house, 11th house, 3rd house, those kind of areas. So do we want to get into Charles?
Whew, I think we're ready.
Okay. Man, I just got like...
I know. This is a really exciting episode. And I've been feeling pulled to this episode for a while. And then we covered the Zodiac. The Manson family was actually suspected of some of those crimes. So we had some crossover from that episode. And I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, because I had been thinking about it. And I was like, well, that's obviously a sign we have to cover this story next. Because... it showed up in the last story, and I was like...
It was a sign, because we've been waiting for the right cult to
We have, and I'm glad this one felt like the right one. Actually, we've had our listeners request this one before, but we just weren't feeling it at the time. Like, sometimes we just
It wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
But now it's the right time.
Now it's the right time, and here we are, and you guys are here.
Well, I'm so excited to see Charles Manson's chart.
Let's chart this bitch.
Right off the bat. I have some similar placements as Charles Manson.
Finally. Seriously, you never have the same placements as these assholes we cover. So I'm really excited for you to kind of get
me and probably Chris Brennan.
Shout out to Chris Brennan.
But it's not the same sun, moon, rising, but the sun is in Scorpio, moon is in Aquarius. Like
shit.
Me. Also, he's born the same year as my grandfather, and he has the same first name as my grandfather.
What?
So it's all
this is
really coming at me.
I like it. It's usually me. That's like there's so many Pisces killers and with like strong Virgo placements.
It's usually you, but today it's me.
This is dope. I'm so excited.
But thankfully, I do not have all of the elements that I talked about previously. He does. I do not.
Okay, let's do this.
I'm like Charles Manson light. Okay, like I didn't do any of this.
I didn't do any of
the active thing. The diet.
The diet version? Is that what you said?
No, I wouldn't do anything like
a watered down Manson.
No. All right.
I know.
All right.
I'm sorry.
This is the one time it's similar to my chart, so we have to really go at it.
Yeah, I'm overly excited. I need to calm down. I'm so sorry. Please continue.
Okay. It definitely kind of like shocked me when I pulled it up.
You're like, oh, is this my chart? Oh, shit.
And it was also a little validating for how stressful my chart is because, like, he's obviously stressed. His is worse, I think, than mine. But one of the astrologers I listened to referenced his chart saying that it's one of the worst charts he's ever seen.
That makes me laugh.
So let's get into it.
Let's get
It's quite the intro. So he was born November 12th, 1934 at 4:40 p.m. Oh my gosh. He has his rising in Taurus.
Okay.
Sun in Scorpio. And moon in Aquarius. Also, I've just figured out that's also why they didn't call Tex someone like by another name because they have the same first name.
Yeah.
I did not. I just know.
They always called Charles Manson. They called him Charlie. The family members called him Charlie. So they did not call him Charles.
Okay. All right. Well,
yeah. They called him Charlie.
So they could have had a Charles and a Charlie.
It's too confusing.
Okay. Obviously. So, in Scorpio, I'm just gonna give you like a quick little, another quick little insights here before I really get into it. Scorpio Sun is conjunct Venus in the 7th house, along with Vesta there, but it's over in Sagittarius a little bit, and Jupiter in Scorpio. He also has Mercury in Scorpio. It's on the 6th house on Placidus. And then his moon is in the 10th house, conjunct his North Node. I also have the North Node in my 10th house.
Man.
And he has Saturn in Aquarius as well, as do I. Saturn is in the 11th house in Placidus. So those are like some big big spots. And then the other big spot on his chart is Leo. Like as I was saying, the Aquarius Leo axis. He has the South Node in Leo, Ceres in Leo, Lilith in Leo.
Dang.
So quite a bit there as well. And having the right on the nodes, I think, is really indicative of this being like his main story of his life, you know.
Wow.
The Taurus rising also has Pallas retrograde conjunct it. So when I look at this, I was thinking it's like a mix of the witch trials in my chart.
Oh my god!
And it's like gross and fascinating.
That's fun.
I was in a mood when I wrote these notes. I put yum yum.
You did! Oh my god, I love it. I love these notes.
Oh, great. Okay.
I was in a mood.
Gross and fascinating yum yum. Some inner self focused on the collective, very like internally self focused on the collective as a whole, like looking at society. And how to innovate it into its highest order. Because idealistic, all right? And this is like directly tied into his emotions. Like this feels like his calling, because his moon is here in Aquarius, and it's in his midheaven, it's in his 10th house, and it's on his north node. So this is like he feels so drawn to this.
He's living his mission.
He's living his mission to, create this like perfect society in a way, like at the core of it. Keep in mind his 10th house cusp is in Capricorn, so it creates this additional element of building an empire out of it. Like he's like the actual placements are in Aquarius, but the cusp of the 10th house is in Capricorn. So he wants to like build this into something. And I think he had like the whole structure of society in mind when he was like carrying out these actions. He wanted this was like going to be his goal and his legacy in life.
God, I mean, I guess it was.
And he becomes known for it. Yeah, it's midheaven.
It is what he's known for. I mean,
and you said it was the first cult?
Yes, it's the first cult in American history.
So he established that. That is midheaven shit.
Oh my god.
He established it, and it is the legacy. It carried. Yeah, he.
Yeah.
The founder of this cult and cults in general.
He invented cults, which is just insane.
As we're entering the Aquarian age, this misguided cult-like, overly centralized, technologized, which I don't think is a word, but it looked like it when I
like it. No, go with
fear is something that comes up a lot with this energy. People really fear like the Aquarian age because of it. Like they're like, oh, it's going to be like this. Like everything's going to be,
made of titanium.
Yeah, like not
like irrational,
less personal and like stressful. Charles is an example of these high idealized unified aspirations of leadership going south. When we see people get upset when businesses upgrade and innovate and like lose their personal touch for the sake of streamlining things, I'm just a number, to fit a wider scale of people. It's kind of that kind of thing, especially when technology comes involved. This is Aquarius energy we're talking about. My point being, Charles has a lot of this in him, and keep that in mind. Not to say the Aquarian age is doom and gloom, but this is like a lot of the negative side of that vibe.
Got it.
That's a lot of the
low vibe energy.
Yeah, it kind of shows the fear that people have, like. So he is a Taurus rising conjunct Pallas. Pallas is retrograde. He has a grounded approach to life in the way that places a heavy value on everything. It makes strong decisions and choices, even though this Pallas in retrograde takes him a longer time to develop, which I now know that he was older when he did this.
Yep. That is really
so it
fun.
did take older till he was older to really like do this.
I love when it shows up like in the chart, like, and you don't quite get why it shows up until
I assumed he was younger, and I was like, this is okay.
You know, I think before I really dug into the research of this episode, I always assumed, I knew he was a little bit older than his followers. I think I thought his followers were younger, and I thought he was younger too. Like I maybe thought he was maybe 26 and his followers were maybe 18, but his followers
like you could kind of lean into like the young and dumb idea.
Yeah, some of them were 22, 23, like they were all around 20 when they joined the family. So it wasn't even
for him to be so old.
Really he's like 15-ish years older than them. Wow. Some of them 10 years, I guess. 10 to 12.
Dang.
Yeah, so I mean, it's old enough to feel like, he has a lot more life experience than me. I feel like whenever I was like 20, though, I thought somebody who was like 32 was like way older than me.
I know.
Like knew so much shit. Like, you know, so if you think of it in that context of like how young you feel even at 20, 22, like
I'm trying to keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah, it's easy to lose sight of that.
But also, like, I was having a kid. I was like really getting established. So I don't know. Like, not that everything was going that well necessarily, but like I feel like I was very like practical.
I could have easily been a part of this cult. I was a mess. I was like,
yeah, you totally could have. At that age.
I was an alcoholic at that age. I was a drug addict at that age. Like I was looking for all the things that people were looking for. Like I would have been a good like energy to go into something like that. Like it would have been easy for me to fall into it. I think if I had been right.
I don't know how old I was when you were that age, but I could have started a little cult and had you join. How cute!
Well, you were like a child, though. Yeah, you were
you
were like 12.
You would have looked up to me.
I probably would have. I feel like you were very mature, even though I didn't know you.
Okay,
I could have babysat you.
All right. Let's reel it in.
Okay. It's so easy to do.
Okay, so Pallas in retrograde, it could take a longer time to develop that aspect of themselves, or maybe wouldn't at all, depending on circumstances. A negative thing about this part of his chart, it can bring this self-righteousness.
No, thank you.
Or Taurus knows what they're worth. Okay, Taurus knows their value. Taurus is going to give it to you. Pallas is going to be discerning about it. And that's how he approaches his whole life. So, great.
Great.
More on the retrograde thing, because there's more retrogrades in this, and I want to, like, just go ahead and get this out of the way. Retrogrades are an internal, reserved action of the planetary energies, rather than the external, direct action that they would usually have. When a planet goes retrograde, it feels like the line between the conscious and the unconscious expression of it get blurred. It almost feels like kind of Neptune-y a little bit. But more like moon. And it doesn't matter. It does not matter. When we can feel into the unconscious side more so during these times, then make adjustments, especially while it moves through its shadow directly after. But when this is natal, it becomes a fixed position of feeling into the placement in only this way as a way of life.
Yes.
The energy of it is sort of slowed down in development, but in this you may feel more, find more of those like synchronicities and the opportunities that kind of show up when you move slowly in life, you know, like stop and smell the roses. Maybe you see like a bumblebee, and then like bumblebees like, wow, that means this, you know, like whatever.
Yeah. You pick up on a lot of the small things, little subtleties of life when you're moving slower. Subtleties. I can't spell it right now. So, you see what I did. You're not gonna know what that says later. Either.
Oh yeah, I will. Slowed down development for this planet in your chart, but in this you might find those synchronicities and opportunities to embrace the good within this placement's retrograde. So, what all does he have retrograde? Just to like go ahead, he has Uranus retrograde in the 12th house in Aries. Pallas retrograde, 1st house, Taurus. Chiron retrograde, 2nd house, Gemini. Pluto retrograde, 4th house, Cancer. So remember those. Also, Haumea is retrograde in Leo, but I'm not really going to get into that. So just if you want to know.
Okay. I bet that's the symbol that I was trying to figure out what it was.
It's like a Hawaiian
goddess. I was like, what is that symbol? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I've been incorporating it into my readings, but I haven't really used it. Like, I'm just kind of observing at this stage. I'm really slow. Like, I really try to, like, be discerning with what I use.
I like it.
So, moving on. The Scorpio stellium. The Sun conjunct Venus. Okay, Venus on the Sun can make people come off caring and lovable and loving. Like, what better person? Like, this is very, like, Jesus-y vibes. Like, we've got this loving, and his being feels like love. Like, the sun is your being, your
that
character.
That is how his followers describe him, too. Like, what you're saying, like, he feels like love. Like, that's the kind of shit they said about him. So, it is very much
like, when people are like, God is love. Like, yeah. Maybe he wasn't a Scorpio, but, like, yeah. Also, you get that sexual component to Scorpio, of course, where we see a lot of that come through, and I'll talk about more of that in a minute. But the Scorpio sun here is intense and passionate, and he's coming off caring and loving, and can so easily manipulate if they want to. Like, it's kind of like innate thing that can come through almost unconsciously with people with a ton of Scorpio if they have that kind of intention going into something. Especially in the way of his other placements all working together, I could see a lot of very easy to manipulate things going on. Because sometimes with... yeah, anyway, he looking at, like, Neptune and where his Mars is and his Chiron, like, I definitely see, like, some manipulating type placements coming through, and I'll go into that more. But this type of placement can very easily attract, like, ride or dies.
Oh, God.
Which he straight up...
He literally wanted to make sure they loved him enough to die for him. Like, here, do you love me enough to stand there and let me throw a hatchet at you and say this weird stuff? Like,
These extremely loyal, romantic, sexual relationships. And this is even more intense, keeping in mind that this is in his 7th house.
Right.
7th house is partnerships and relationships and balance and the shadow and, like, legalities, too. But, like, you know, it's almost kind of like signing... like, not a real contract,
like a blood oath almost, or like a soul contract. Like, they're devoted. They're so devoted. Yeah, they've basically dedicated themselves in this, almost like a contract. I think having to make those types of verbal agreements of, yes, I would die for you, that's a fucking verbal contract. Like, they're doing this, and then they did sign technically a blood oath when they committed these crimes.
Like, they're doing very 7th house shit, where, like, it's the opposition of the first house of the ego. So, like, they are, like, giving him their ego,
right? And that's what he was trying to do, is break it down. Yeah,
their identity.
Yeah, 100%. God, this is so, like,
told you.
This chart is really crazy.
Yeah, told you. And then on top of this, he has Saturn square the Sun and Venus, which I also have. So his Saturn is, like, right near mine, actually. So, and also something with all of the men in my family also have the same Saturn placement as me.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like the grandfather placement, the father placement, which is really
interesting,
fascinating. He has it too. Anyway,
cute, so cute.
My grandpa was born, like, weeks after him. Like,
that's nuts. Wow.
Same first name. Okay. His picture is in the episode. It's right here.
Oh my gosh!
I forgot that it's back there all the time.
He's in the episode.
You know, I need to get my grandma on the other side now that she's passed away too.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Cute.
So cute. All right. For all of you guys just listening, I'm sorry, but I had to say it. All right.
Whatever. They love knowing more things about us.
True.
And why we're...
Be obsessed with me.
Be obsessed with
me. Be obsessed with me.
But don't make a fake account because
Stop
that's
it.
insane.
All of you. I mean, I'm sure none of them listen to the podcast.
It's like my part-time job now to find the fake accounts. I find, like, this week alone, I think I've shown you 3 and reported 3 of them.
It's gotten really bad for... It
has gotten really bad.
For me, but also for all, like, readers and, like, spiritual workers, and also a lot of, like, my first thought was accountants, because TikTok, but, like sexual workers, like sex workers online, they have a lot of these fake accounts coming up for them, too, and they'll message you, and they'll say, oh, can I consider you for a reading, or, like, I've been called to you, and blah, 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 or, like, do you want to see these pictures, blah, 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 like, and they'll give you a link, and it's a scam, so just be thoughtful when you are on Instagram, especially, that there are a lot of people out there trying to scam, and the people in these businesses, the real people, are not going to message you like that.
And if you see a fake Eruca Rose account, like, fucking report that shit.
Please report it. It's getting so old.
Anyway, so don't get that obsessed. Let's please proceed.
So, Scorpio, also, he's got Jupiter and Mercury conjunct. This is an intense growth through this, like, liminal space type of speech.
Oh, no.
And planning. This communication will take him further on his goals. This is Jupiter we're talking about. Jupiter, like, is so benefic and, like, expands things for you, and you find growth and opportunity. Like, he just has to talk, and he comes to him.
And like, he does say all this, like, liminal space kind of shit, like, time's not real, and we're just here in the space, man.
It's transcendent, really.
I'm transcending right now.
He's
and so are
transformative in Scorpio. Transformative, transcendent. This is stuff that other people can't see. Anything that's, like, hidden, taboo, sexual, or occult type stuff, like, if he talks about it, it's gonna, like, expand. I also have Jupiter in this spot in my chart.
This is so fun.
But it is in a different house. I have mine in the 8th house, and he has his in the 7th. So for him, you see it a lot in his partnerships where he can, like, use this. So it's
that's great.
So, but I also don't have Mercury right there. I think my Mercury is a little further over, not conjunct my Jupiter. But that would be maybe nice though for my. Anyway, for the podcast.
Like, if it were a high vibing thing, this could be used in, like, a really positive.
I have to double check my chart after this and see how close my Jupiter and Mercury are.
Do a synastry with Charles Manson for Patreon.
For Patreon, I will do it for Patreon.
I'm writing it down. Oh, you guys!
Are you willing to stay late to do this today?
Fuck yeah! All right. Let's do it. Oh my god! Right after this Patreon, we got you. Okay.
We're gonna be so I don't want to think about it. All right. Jupiter in the 7th house again is expansion, but this is in relationships. Mercury in the 6th house is feeling his message is of service, and it's nurturing his people. He's caring for them. Finding partners and people in literal states of transition is also very Scorpio.
Yeah.
That's where he's finding his opportunity.
Yeah, he's finding these lost souls that have been cast aside and are seeking something, and he's fucking got it.
He's got it. As we see with the heavy Scorpio killers, they are harder to uncover for one reason or another. GSK, maybe the Zodiac Killer, if you remember back to those episodes.
Yes, please check those out if not.
For Charles, it seems to be more like within like hiding behind the cult, where if he had acted alone, maybe he would have been harder to catch in a similar way to the other killers, like the other 2 Scorpios on the podcast we've covered so far. But no, his involvement with the others altered this approach, and we see these personal relationships reflected in the Scorpio placements being in the 7th house. The house of relationships and the shadow, manipulative, deflecting energy comes through.
It sure does.
It sure does.
Can confirm. I've heard this man speak. It's a mess.
He's got Neptune and Mars conjunct in Virgo, which is in the 5th house. So he's really doing all of this in this place that feels really expressive and fun and joyful for him. Just keep that in mind. This is actions taken solely from his perceptions, even if those are illusionary or misguided types of worldviews. But this is a joyful thing for him to act on these worldviews that he has. Not a lot of like fact checking after a worldview of him being the authority figure is established, where he's already got this. When you look at the other placements on his chart, like he's very, he really feels like he is an authority on stuff. Like he really values his own approach to life and existence. So, with the Salem witch trials, these types of placements led to like a lot of shame of just being a person, being human, in a way that a higher power would or would not approve of. As his perceptions become the reference point to action, not only for himself, but he puts that on everybody else. He gets to determine what is right and what is wrong in this human shame perspective, like trying to get rid of the ego and stuff. You need a healthy ego, okay? Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. Mm-hmm. If we weren't here, like, if you can't have a human experience without the ego. Like, you wouldn't be able to hold boundaries with other people. You wouldn't be able to, like, self-care. Like, there'd be a lot of things that, like, you would just kind of wither away.
You need
like,
a sense
ego
of
death
self.
Is not good.
Your sense of self matters in all situations, and anyone who tries to deplete that is a predator.
Yes.
Like, that's bottom line.
Yeah.
That's one of the things
but
that
you do see a lot of these old messages like, oh, the ego is in your way and stuff. Like, I've heard it so many times, and it's like, yeah, okay.
My ego is my sense of self, and
you
it
see a lot of
nowhere.
issues come up when they try to get, like, dispel their ego. So, anyway, moving on. His perspective on this gets strong and deadly. We see these get more and more extreme due to his chart and like personality, you know, it's shown in the chart. There is a grand trine from his Neptune and Mars to his rising with the Palace and his Juno and Pholus conjunct in Capricorn. All making him even more extra committed to his notions. It will feel really good and easy for him to exercise this system that's on his chart. And it makes things even more extreme.
Yeah.
Which is what we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
As we said, he was known for regular hallucinogenic drug use, which you also will see with like heavy Neptune placements. Neptune in this placement with Mars makes for a dangerous combo, as the Neptunian illusions and delusions serve Mars his action orders. Like, Mars wants to know what to do and wants to just go do it.
Yeah.
So if Neptune is serving Mars the orders for what to do, and he is doing hallucinogenics, like, you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah. He's given some fucking whacked out orders.
And he's going at it. Like, he goes. Yeah. And he has a good time with it.
Yeah, he's enjoying himself so much, like, through this whole thing. It's a very pleasure-filled experience for him all around. Ugh.
And you see why, like, having it being Virgo with that access, like, on that, like, human shame idea, like, where he kind of goes into this spiritual sense of, I mean, Neptune already is, like, spiritual in a way, but, like, and connecting to other realms and stuff, but also how it's in Virgo, and he's like, I need to, like, get in here and fix this, like, nitpick and, like, create and, like, the human shame
make
stuff.
Make some improvements.
It's so much.
Yeah.
It's so much. He has Aries, or he has Uranus retrograde in the 12th house in Aries as well. Which Uranus and Aries can already bring out, like, this kind of like spontaneous warrior energy.
Oh no! Okay.
But it's retrograde, so it kind of takes a while, and it's kind of weird. Like, kind of doesn't act like as direct. It also, this is someone who's not afraid to be an individual, to like stand against the crowd. This is like, they're going for it. I also wonder if he was like really into like technology that was coming out, if he liked it, because I'm just curious about that. With the Aquarius placements and this Uranus placement, I feel like it'd be like exciting.
Yeah.
Anyway, 12th house, but also maybe a side note, doesn't matter. Fixation on the spontaneous war breakout is what really struck me with this placement.
Because that's what he's trying to do. That's his goal.
Like he. And this was in all parts of life, and literally with the race war that he keeps suggesting is going to happen, and how he is willing to like stand out and make it happen. He's gonna
he's like, I have an idea.
Start, and he's gonna innovate this into like very Uranus, like we're gonna make it happen. Like,
wow,
we're gonna fix everything, innovate society. Let's make it ideal.
What a hot mess.
And 12th house is, a lot of like subconscious stuff and like isolating stuff. It can also have that godlike stuff to it, like I was saying earlier. It's a lot. It's a lot. He has Chiron retrograde as well in Gemini, and this is in his second house, like I said. When your natal Chiron is retrograde, it creates even more difficulty to accept your early life traumas and vulnerabilities, but you do have more introspection over them. And I think he did spend a lot of time introspecting on his traumas and the traumas and how he can heal everyone and himself,
I think that's a lot of his prison.
Ruminating, yeah,
I don't know why, but it feels like he did that in prison, which is probably why he was so ready to get out and like try to heal everybody with what he's kind of reflected on. I've spent all this time with myself, and I know what's wrong with the system. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna fix it. Like that's what it feels like to me. That's just an intuitive hit.
Also, when he was in prison, I'm curious what was going on in his 12th house with that Uranus placement, because I think that it was probably triggered, especially then. His 12th house can also show isolation and like imprisonment.
Yep.
And it could also have an influence on how he ended up in prison and all of that, but we don't need to get into that. When there is this added layer of discomfort for having human experiences of shame or pain, where Chiron is. However, this is a slowed down placement, like I said earlier, and he could find like more opportunities and synchronicities to help him embrace emotional healing. So that's probably where he felt like he was getting all of these symbols, related to pain and trauma and healing. Being in the second house in Gemini, we see his trauma journey involving subjects of speech, dyslexia maybe, early education, common sense kind of stuff, expression issues, having a voice. Health issues could have been involved with like vocal cords, the shoulders, arms, hands, respiratory system, all mainly affecting him in the part of life where he engages with the material world, where he gets grounded and connects with his values. So I think like he really was trying to embrace those things when he was going on the healing side of this. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not sure what happened in his early life that like really like started the journey, but like you can see on the other side how he was trying to like do something about it.
Right.
A trine from here to his moon and north node offers a harmonious emotional connection to these traumatic and healing experiences, but also a deeply emotional mission on a grander scale. You said mission earlier.
I did. I said he's on a fucking mission. I like it. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. He'll feel like his healing is drastically improved by curating it as a goal for everyone as a whole. Aquarius heavy charts already have issues deciphering the difference between feeling the energy from the collective versus their own energy. Especially like when it's the moon, it's like your emotions. Like it's like, am I feeling the collective's emotions right now, or am I feeling my emotions right now? where like it's kind of similar to how like Cancer rising people and Cancer moons and stuff. It's like, am I feeling this person's, like, am I picking up on someone else's emotions or mine, or it blurs this line between individualism and the collective as a whole, society as a whole. So we see a lot of those themes with Aquarius. So also, you know, he's thinking on that, in that level, in that way. He's feeling on that way. His mission is like that. It gets all tangled, is what I wrote. And with the Taurus second house placement, keeping him so, like, all of those Taurus and second house placements, keeping him so self-assured in his own perceptions of his feelings he picks up on and how he operates off of those, it makes it very dangerous. Potentially dangerous, of course. He has Vesta in the 7th house in Sagittarius. He is devoted to the journey of life. Very much the vibe that was like of that time. Yeah. So he had that like, devotion, soul devotion to that vibe. Like, and that would shine through. Yeah, I think feels right. And it was carried out through his relationships in the 7th house. Yep. Some South Node shit. Let's get into that. Okay. I've swore more in this episode than any other. Leo South Node, Lilith, Ceres, Pluto RX, all 4th house.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole bunch of shit altogether.
And Humea, if you're curious about that. This will feel like he wants to. I remember like looking at this and I was trying to like make it into one sentence and just like have it happen.
There's so much going on. Yeah.
Because I can break it down, but also to just kind of like tie it all up. It was hard. Okay, so he feels like he wants to go. He wants an ego death to save the collective, but also like can't give up his own power. Okay. I put sassy. This is an intense South Node.
Mercury is so funny to me. I'm
glad you liked it.
Yes, I see.
You see where I wrote it. I couldn't remember what this is called, but there's like an emoji where it's like this, like.
It's that girl. I call it the basic girl emoji.
I don't know what you call it, but that's what I wanted to put that in here.
I always call her the little basic girl. That's funny. I've called her that for like 8 years now.
And it's like, I'd really like to just like completely have an ego death to save the world, but also like I like the power and the sex. Like,
so maybe we won't go all the way there.
So you know, you can't. It's almost this feeling like the South Node can be this thing where you reject that part of like it's your past. Like you want to move past that. You want to like go to your North Node, but you really use your South Node to get to your North Node. So like you see them get integrated. So like you kind of be, that's why I think when people talk about like you become your worst enemy or you become like somebody you never thought you would be, like someone you would never want to be. Yeah. Like this can be part of that. Like where it's like and I see it in myself a little bit too. Like you you don't want to be like the South Node on your chart. And then but as you need it to like move forward in life.
It propels you
and
to
you end up being it as well. Yeah. Like you end up, and like when you're early in life, when you're like more on the South Node end of life, you look at the North Node, like you want it, but it's also kind of like this weird thing. It
feels unreachable, I feel like.
Yeah, so then you're like, I would never be like that. I identify with my South Node. I'm really young. Like, I don't know.
No, I get that.
But also you don't. And it's really weird. Hard to explain, probably. I'm getting too far into it. So, this is an intense South Node for someone to have. It is harder time. So I was having a harder time feeling into it. Feeling like this feels like something a person would try to block out of their conscious thoughts, but it would like sit in the back of their mind. There's a lot of struggle as this is a deep place of self-empowerment and manipulation, but also a foundation of love and self-love. So comforting and enthralling, but something that felt like it was the past to be moved away from. Something that can't be avoided, though, and that's very challenging to integrate into a way of good intentions with the way his chart lays out. Like he would have really had to work through these placements to not like have this malicious stuff happening. I think
that would have taken extra.
I think it would have taken. I think it would have been difficult. Not that the chart controls anyone, but like, it can have a lot of sway. You know, it looks like this became the foundation of what his North Node in Aquarius and those placements had him living to move away from. He became and created what he kind of tried to swear off. Like he became this like really awful leader that was like self-absorbed and like, you know, manipulative and all this stuff, which is kind of like what I feel like he was preaching against, you know.
Like man invented this, they're trying to tell you, you know, like the man invented time thing, like things like that of saying like reject these things. They're controlling us.
But I'm gonna do the same thing in a different way.
That's
like,
exactly it.
The same.
Yeah. The same thing, different flavor.
Different flavor. It's definitely an intense and upsetting, confusing like childhood with this placement. Also, I just don't know a lot about his childhood.
I didn't bother doing a lot on like deep dive on him just because
I
hate researching him. I really wanted to look more deeply.
I meant to look into it too, but that's
and I told you I wasn't going to go deep on him because I didn't want to. But we have to cover him. I knew you'd go deep on the chart, so you were like, "I'll cover him in depth." So
I will be me.
He just is so cringe to me, and
he is.
I apologize for not just biting the bullet and going deeper there, but
it's okay.
It's okay.
There is a massive Grand Cross on his chart, I should say. It's involving these like heavy nodal conjunctions, the rising Uranus, Mercury, Jupiter, all involved. So you can really visualize his chart's energy, like intensely difficult energies at play. It's very karmic. And so you've got like the stuff with the nodes we were talking about just now. The moon and Lilith and Ceres and Pluto and like Jupiter and Mercury and Uranus and Pallas and the rising sign. It's all creates this huge like system on his chart of conflict and challenge and like pain, like difficulty, like, and it all is completely all tied into his life path. Like this is all like the main story of his life. Like, a lot of stress there. A lot of stress on that chart. Conflicting energies. In conclusion, though, his chart shows the inner workings of his perceptions guiding him to take these actions that had these deadly consequences, I think.
Gross.
So gross. An astrologer I like to listen to his name is Edwin Learnard. He... in his video, like it was called like worst natal charts or something like that, and he said he feels that Charles Manson is one of the worst charts he's ever seen. Yeah. He mentions.
Oh, I love the quotes. Okay.
He said if anybody may have personified evil, it may very well have been him. Agreed. He said he talked about he has a number of adverse aspects involving the Grand Cross with Pluto at and he does a lot of degree work. Okay. At the critical degree of Cancer. His third house cusp almost at 29 anaretic degree, critical degree of Gemini. He said this can bring a weight with words. Okay. Like kind of like we were saying earlier. With how his Mercury was also in Scorpio, I don't know if I said it or not outright, but that it's deceptive. It could be deceptive speech, really enticing speech, that kind of thing. With scorpionic, intense stuff. But the way with words that he's mentioning here, it can bedazzle someone, manipulate them, especially with the Scorpio energy as well. It can ease furthermore in that, he has more ease in the Neptune sextile to Venus and his Sun placement. Which I didn't get fully into aspects here, but I had already written so much, like,
because we've been talking about Manson for like almost an hour alone for just him.
So it's a lot. He also mentions the 18th degree, where his sun placement is, being noted as the degree of the devil.
Oh wow.
He also has he called it bizarre poor moon placement, where it is, and he mentions to overcome poor charts, you want to really focus your energy on working through them. So
yeah,
it was interesting to hear what he had to say as well.
I love it.
He was one of the only people that had really touched on his chart. So
very cool. So that's Charles Manson, but we're going to keep hearing about him through the eyes of followers as I talk about each of the girls. So now we're going to go through the Manson girls.
Manson girls. If you are in Northwest Arkansas and looking for affordably priced photography and videography services, then you should definitely reach out to Nice NWA.
Yes, you should.
With photo sessions starting at $100, now is a great time to update your company's headshots, get graduation photos, new family pictures, and more. Looking for video work instead?
Yes, videos start at just $300 and are a great way to boost your marketing engagement online with current customers and potential new customers. It's also a great way to create highlight reels of your next event or just to tell your story in an exciting and creative way. Nice is not just locally owned and operated, but is also a certified minority and veteran-owned business that started right here in Northwest Arkansas in 2017.
So, go check them out on Facebook or on Instagram at NiceNWA or by visiting their website at nicenwa.com.
The Manson girls.
The Manson girls.
Overview. Overview. Okay, so quickly, we're going to run through them. We're going to cover their charts in a chunk because they are very similar energies in general. I don't know how similar their charts are, but like as people and their backstories, again, all American kind of girls, very similar upbringings. We'll get some insight in kind of what differentiates each of them and how they got into the family, that kind of thing. So one of the things that made these girls so captivating was the way they carried themselves throughout the trial. It's fucking creepy as hell. They usually wore matching outfits, cute little dresses. They wore their hair the exact same way. They had this long, dark, straight hair, parted down the middle, looking almost like triplets. They would hold hands on the way to court, and they would sing songs together. So they're singing these creepy little like songs. So it's this really crazy thing everywhere they went. And they were acting under Manson's direction the entire time throughout court. They laughed, giggled throughout the proceedings.
And to clarify, this is Patricia, Leslie, and Lynette? No, this is Susan, Patricia, and Leslie. Okay.
Because Squeaky did not actually commit any of the crimes. She was like den mother. She's the one who still is a devout follower. We're going to cover her in more detail. She's kind of next layer. But right now we are going to cover Susan, Patricia, and Leslie, the three Manson girls that you'll see in all the videos. Actually, like going on trial, they committed the crimes. They are still devout followers of Manson at this point in time. They were like the girls next door, basically, which is another thing that makes it so creepy and made it so like crazy for America at the time to see this on display. So we're going to start with covering Susan Atkins. She was described by people who knew her as quiet, self-conscious kind of girl. She was in the glee club at school. She was a member of the choir at her local church. So she, had these activities and commitments. She liked to sing, obviously. For the most part, she lived a pretty average middle-class suburban life until about the age of 13. Of all the Manson girls, she was considered to be the most deprived. So she's one that had a little bit more challenge with her early life than the other girls. But they were all pretty average still, But at this time, Susan became very rebellious. Things really, she was already kind of going through that rebellious early teen kind of stage at about 13 years old, which is a little bit young to start rebelling. Like most kids kind of maybe 15, maybe by the time they can drive and stuff. But, for 13, she's pretty rebellious. But it gets worse after a family tragedy because her mother ended up passing away from cancer when she was 16. So that's really hard for a young girl to lose their mother, especially to watch her be sick and all of this. And, you know, she was definitely, like, really loved her mom and was sweet and caring. Like, she actually organized her church to go, like, stand outside her mother's window at the hospital and sing Christmas carols or in Christmas time. Like, she, like, was a really caring girl. Despite having some rebellious tendencies, like, she still really loved and had a close relationship with her mom. So that loss was heavy for her. Then in 1967, when she's 19 years old, Susan meets Charles Manson. He actually shows up at a house where she was living with some friends. Came, hung out. He's there. He's playing guitar. So, you know, he loved music, wanted to be a musician. So he's kind of hanging. And then, you know, at this point in time, people are kind of crashing on sofas for a while. Like, you're hanging out at a house, you're kind of living there. It is kind of like a mini commune lifestyle, like young people all kind of crashing together. But this house was raided several weeks after she had moved in there by the police, and then Susan was left homeless at the time. So she's in like a bad situation, and of course Predator Manson invited her to join his group, and they were all about to go on a summer road trip in a converted school bus that he painted completely black. So sounds great. Hopping in. Another weird thing about the family that I think is interesting is he gave all of the family members nicknames. We already talked about Tex Watson.
You take away their identity. You take away their name.
Correct. And they usually had multiple names. And this is a part of grooming. It's part of the conditioning where you are getting depersonalized and like getting a new identity in this family. But she was known as Sexy Sadie. Sadie was how they all knew her. And it's interesting because it's similar to Susan, but not really. So it's like a new identity building upon your old ones, sort of, is what it feels like.
It's like when you adopt a dog, you're supposed to choose like a new name for it.
Yes. I'm going to make it mine now. He was like making them his. It could
be similar, but like you want to give them like a new life. Like,
he was making them his and kind of rebranding them into like the family. So, and Susan later claimed that she truly believed Manson was Jesus, and she went on to participate in the killings. She was both involved in both of them. She was literally doing anything he said. She also had a child with a fellow cult member, but her parental rights were terminated after she was arrested, obviously. No one in her family would assume responsibility for the child either, which is kind of sad. So her son was adopted and renamed after the slayings and convictions. So
wow.
I hope he's doing well wherever he is, because that's really sad. But she was convicted and originally sentenced to death, but that was commuted to life later. This happened for everybody in the family. She actually died in prison. We have a death time for her, or not death time. We have a death date, but September 24th, 2009. Not that long ago.
Yeah.
So that is Susan Atkins. We're going to move on to Patricia Krenwinkel.
Okay.
So she is the one that I was wondering if maybe had some heavy Capricorn placements, because she was like soldier energy for him.
Jupiter and Pholus, both retrograde, and Vertex.
Huh. I put over here like...
Oh, wait, Patricia?
Yes.
Wait. Oh, okay, no, sorry. Pholus, Juno, and Venus. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, similar to Susan Atkins, Patricia grew up in a really normal home, middle class, same kind of shit. Her dad was an insurance salesman. Her mother was a homemaker. She was described as a really good kid. But unfortunately, she had a really hard time fitting in when she was young. And this is an issue that we see with people who end up having struggles with antisocial behavior later in life. Peer rejection is a common risk factor. So, not that it causes anything, but it is a risk factor. So, depending on how it manifests within the person, combined with other,
when was this? What age type? Generally speaking.
Like, this was her younger life.
Like elementary school.
Yeah, that's what I'm, like, young.
So, in her third house, Lilith and Pholus are there, and if she had like a bad thing going through, that's definitely... And this is Lilith in Aquarius, being an outsider, being bullied, being outcast.
Literally, I was about to say she was bullied at school by other students and was frequently teased for being overweight.
Yeah.
She had low self-esteem from this as a result. The other kids also, this is awful, this upsets me. They made fun of her for having an excessive growth of body hair. It was caused by an endocrine condition, so she couldn't fucking help it. And these kids are just kind of torturing her.
She was bullied for excessive stuff, which is also photos here.
Yeah. So that is like breaks my heart for any child. You know, there's something you physically can't help about yourself, and other kids using that. But that's just
awful.
It is awful. But she was, by all accounts, a really good kid, and she even considered becoming a nun at the age of 17.
Wow.
So she was raised Catholic. You know, her parents divorced around that time as well, though. So that's a really tough time. 17 to have your parents divorced, that's
a hard time.
That's really tough.
It's a hard age.
Yeah, you really.
I mean, all of it, but I'm just thinking about that specifically.
That specific age, it just feels really, really challenging. Any kind of separation and breaking up of a family is hard, but I think some ages it hits a little harder, and yeah. So that was tough on her. She still ended up going to college. She went to college in Florida, which is kind of fascinating. Cool. But then she dropped out after one semester, moved back to California. She moved into an apartment with her half-sister, and she found a job being a processing clerk. So she's living kind of a normal life. She seems to be dealing with her, issues pretty well. She's 20 years old at this point. So she's one who's, again, 20 years old is kind of the common age when they meet him. She meets Charles Manson in Manhattan Beach, along with Lynette Squeaky Fromm, and another member of the family, a female. So trigger warning, here we go. In later interviews, Patricia said that she had sex with Charles Manson the night that they first met. Mm-hmm. And that he was the first person who told her she was beautiful. And it's just like such a fucking predator move, and he's grooming her and gross, and I fucking hate it. So I want to give a trigger warning for that, just because it felt really disgusting and manipulative and like preying on someone who had like that esteem issue, and then like bringing them in, making them feel loved and special. It just really grossed me out, kind of the way he did that. Super nasty. I hate it. But she enjoyed the attention that he gave her. She was drawn to him like a lot of the other young people. She decided to leave her life behind and go to San Francisco with Manson and the girls that she'd just met. So she literally left it all behind. Her apartment, her car, her final paycheck from work. Like, she just fucking abandoned her life.
Wow.
And let's talk about her nicknames. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Nicknames are the best part. She had more nicknames than anybody else.
Is that good? Is that bad?
So they called her, I don't know, but they called her Big Patty, Yellow, Marnie Reeves, and Marianne Scott. But the most common name they called her was Katie.
Okay.
Nothing like Patricia, I don't know. But she hopped on that black school bus, and she rode into the night with them. But here's a direct quote on how she described this time of her life with the family. The quotes really do it for me. We were just like wood nymphs and wood creatures. We would run through the woods with flowers in our hair, and Charles would have a small flute. Sure. So they're like playing pretend. They're like living this really idyllic kind of fantasy lifestyle. Patricia was still described as being very quiet. And in the family, they described her as a good soldier. That was literally how they... She was good at taking orders. She was really obedient. Like, she did what she was told.
She has Moon conjunct Saturn, so I could see that.
Okay.
Anyway, keep going with Pluto.
So this is another super interesting thing that ties Manson more into the music industry. And I mentioned the Beach Boys earlier. Now I'm going to get into that whole little thing I kind of alluded to. So Patricia and another one of the girls from the family were hitchhiking one day. That's how you traveled a lot back then. This is the late 60s and early 70s. Hitchhiking was a thing. And they got picked up by the founding member of the Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson. So, like, that's kind of crazy. He brought the girls back to his place, which ended up being a bit of a mistake because they called the family and were like, hey, we've got a spot to hang out. So the entire family ended up crashing at his place. And this lasted for a few months before it became a huge financial issue. And that's when Dennis Wilson had to kick him out. And that's how they ended up at the ranch. But Dennis Wilson said there was, the first time he met Charles Manson, he went home to his house. And Manson answered his door and welcomed him into his own home.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the level of, like, power trip. Mm-hmm. I'm going to welcome you into this space that is now mine because I'm here. Like, it's so, like, grossly overstepping. But anyway, so back to Patricia. When she was asked what she felt about her participation in the murders, she said, "Nothing. I mean, what is there to describe? I was just there, and it was right." That's okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So extremely removed. It feels very dissociative from everything that they had done. Again, she was sentenced to death, commuted to life. At the beginning of her life in prison, she remained loyal to Manson and to the family, but over time she started to break away. She started to distance herself from them. And since then, she's maintained a perfect prison record. She received a bachelor's degree in human services. She also shows remorse for her crimes now. In a Diane Sawyer interview in 1994, she stated, "I wake up every day knowing that I'm a destroyer of the most precious thing, which is life. And I do that because that's what I deserve, is to wake up every morning and know that." And then during the same interview, she expressed the most remorse for what she did to Abigail Folger, saying, "That was just a young woman that I killed who had parents. She was supposed to live a life, and her parents were never supposed to see her dead."
Yeah.
And during that same interview, she said that Charles Manson was absolutely lying about not ordering the murders. She said there wasn't, this is a direct quote, "there wasn't one thing done that was even allowed to be done without his express permission." I got chills. In one of her parole hearings, she tried to claim that she was suffering from battered woman syndrome as a result of Manson's abuse, but the board didn't seem that convinced. She's been denied parole more than 14 times. She's still alive in prison today. She's 74 years old. She's probably going to die there at this point, you know. Mm-hmm. All right. Final Manson girl. Again, they're all pretty similar. We're going to talk about Leslie Van Houten. So when we look at Leslie, things like the other girls started out okay, but for her it got pretty bad pretty fast. She grew up again, middle class, church-going family, same old story. She had an older brother and 2 adopted siblings, and they were a brother and sister from Korea. So I thought that was kind of interesting that she had this like kind of blended, adopted, unconventional family for the time that she grew up. Like, she was born in 1949. Like, you know, we're looking at times where that wasn't super common. Like, it's much more common now than it was back then. So I thought that was kind of cool. But she was super close to her dad. Major daddy's girl. She was described as athletic and outgoing. She was elected on the homecoming court in high school, so people liked her. But her mother and father divorced when she was 14. And again, divorce wasn't even common back then, and you see that pattern with these girls too. Mm-hmm.
True, yeah.
They're coming from this perfect, idyllic, picturesque family of what everybody wanted at that time in the 60s and 70s. And, you know, divorce was a very taboo thing back then. So to have that experience then is even different than it is now because it's far less common. Mm-hmm. So that's, again, we see the same pattern, the same template of the type of person that ended up being a member of the family. They all have this same kind of template going on. So, you know, after the divorce, things started to spiral. She started doing LSD. So she was already using hallucinogenic drugs, benzos, smoking hash. This is all around the age of 15. She ran away for a while. She did come back to complete high school. So she, like, but was falling, you know, kind of off the straight and narrow path here. Yeah. Trigger warning. Trigger warning. At age 17, she became pregnant, and her mother forced her to have an abortion. So that's tough to deal with. Later, her mother told her that the procedure could not be referred to as an abortion because the fetus was too mature. So that's kind of intense. So she actually, this is awful. This is awful. Her mother instructed her to bury the late-term aborted baby in their backyard. So, like, to have, like, a funeral, sort of. Mm-hmm. Like, that's fucking horrific. She's 17 years old. So this is a really terrible thing, very traumatic thing to go through as a young woman, to be dealing with, first of all, the hormones of like your changing body, this emotional aspect of, and the sense of loss and the sense of shame, and this then having to do this like funeral. It's like it all feels against her will.
Yeah.
So
it's terrible.
Yeah, Leslie stated that after this event, she felt very removed from her mother. She harbored an intense anger towards her. I understand. I can only fucking imagine. But after all this, she had a period of time where she was really interested in yoga. She actually took a year-long secretarial course, too. So she's trying to, like, do these spiritual things. She's seeking some sort of...
And back then,
yoga would have been a very spiritual thing to seek out back then, especially.
Yeah, very different, very, unique back then.
Like, you see her trying to heal herself, trying to move past everything. It makes me wonder, like, what is her, like, Chiron situation looking like? If she's trying to move past it pretty early, so I don't know if it...
It's in... Oh, why can't I find it? Sagittarius. So, yeah, I mean, it also makes sense why she would kind of look for, like, that spiritual component. Thing. It's in the... it's right at the end of the 3rd house on the 4th house cusp, so
okay,
kind of like doing kind of like community type things like that.
Actually, this is very on brand because we're going to talk about how she got into the family now. So she ended up becoming a hippie and living at a commune in Northern California. So she's already living on some random hippie commune before she meets Manson. So she's seeking this out before she ended up in a cult. She was already gravitating.
Okay.
She was following, she ended up following another member of this commune to Manson's family. So she went from one kind of commune to another. The ranch, though, was super isolated. She's like 19 years old. She's very impressionable at this age, obviously. She called her mom when she joined the family to let her know that she was leaving and would not be making contact ever again. So she basically like said goodbye to everybody, sort of a thing. And the ranch was based on this idea of free love, like how we talked about, where Charles Manson's in full control. He decided when they would eat, when they would sleep, when they would have sex. He decided who they got to have sex with. He, like, the LSD stuff, where he gave his followers large doses, and he fucking microdosed, if he even took any at all. So, yeah. He always wanted to have the upper hand. According to Manson, this is a direct quote, when you take LSD enough times, you reach a state of nothing, of no thought. So that's what he liked. That's the state he liked his people in. So he had the most influence and the most control. And then when Leslie reflects back on it, she said that she was saturated in acid, is how she remembers it. Whoa, saturated in acid. That word. Yes, I like quoted it here because it stood out to me so much when I was hearing her talk. She could not grasp the existence of those living in a non-psychedelic reality. Other members of the group, especially the younger ones, considered her to be a leader in the family. And it's also interesting that Leslie wasn't involved in the Tate murders. So the first set with Sharon Tate, like the night that was messy. She was not involved in that, but she was involved in the LaBianca killing. She was chosen. You were chosen for these missions. He strategically picked out certain people and omitted other people.
You were special.
His crimes. Yes, you were special. You were chosen. So it's almost like the group one didn't do a great job. He didn't take all of the same people back out for the second night where he went and tied everybody up. So it's almost like he was like, that group didn't do as well. I need my leaders. I need my
He picked the Virgo to go on this one.
Fucking yes, he did. Oh my God, I realized she was a Virgo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He picked her to go. He needed someone who was, gonna follow the rules a little bit. And like he just wanted more control. So, we're going to go ahead and go through her nicknames, because we have to. These are so random, because her name's Leslie, once again. They called her Luella Alexandria. They called her Leslie Marie Sankston, Linda Sue Owens, and Lulu. I heard most of them referring, like most of the family members calling her Lulu when they would recount the stories, because they called each other Sadie and Lulu, and they didn't, and Katie. They didn't call each other by the names like the legal names. So, she had some court drama. I don't know if this shows up on the chart. But her original conviction and sentence of death were overturned by an appellate court decision. And she was granted a retrial, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Her second trial ended with a deadlocked jury and a mistrial. So that's all kind of crazy
Uranus
stuff.
trine the 7th house cusp.
Woo!
and a lot of oppositions on it.
I love it. At her third trial in 1978, she was convicted of 2 counts of murder, 1 count of conspiracy, sentenced to 7 years to life in prison. She's 72 and still in prison, you guys. She's not getting out. So those are the 3 main Manson girls we're going to be covering. And then after that, we're going to get into Squeaky Fromm, who is extremely significant, and then Tex. So we're working our way through in chunks.
Yeah, so a little bit on them. On the Manson girls is Susan Atkins was born May 7th, 1948. And, I cut off her birth time on here. She was 1:03 a.m.
Okay, I remember you looked at
in my memory. I got it.
I remember you saying that.
And then Patricia was born December 3rd, 1947 at 4:41 a.m. Leslie was born August 23rd, 1949 at 5:51 a.m. I remember that one too. So we've got Leslie the Taurus. She's got a Taurus stellium. She's also a Taurus rising. A lot of that, or no, why did I just say Taurus? Virgo. Jeez, I just said totally said the wrong thing.
Susan's a Taurus.
Yeah. So Virgo rising, Virgo sun, Virgo Pallas, Virgo Saturn, Virgo Mercury, Virgo Ceres. So a lot going on there, and her moon is actually conjunct her sun, but on the other side, it's in Leo.
That's so interesting because with all the Virgo and when he needed the job done right, after he felt like the first group didn't do a good job, he swapped someone out and brought her in.
And she's probably got this fiery pull in her personality because she has Lilith conjunct North Node in Aries. So very interesting. Also Jupiter conjunct Pholus in Capricorn with the vertex, so also that earth energy there. Venus in Libra, wanting to have a partner around. Also, all of these girls had Neptune in Libra, which I could see a lot of them acting really kind of weird Neptunian in court situations with that.
Oh, yeah, they did. They did weird stuff in court.
You would have to look at it more specifically with the transits, but for the sake of time, we're just going to kind of leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
Patricia was a Sagittarius with a Leo moon as well. She had a Leo her chart is kind of all spread out. So she had a lot of placements all over. But her North Node is in Taurus. She had Chiron and Mercury conjunct the South Node in Scorpio. She has Jupiter on her Sun in Sagittarius, which is a really interesting placement for this. Let's see. Susan is a Taurus with a Aries moon.
Murder moon. She had a murder moon, you guys.
And Aquarius rising. I am looking at, kind of taking note of all their Lilith placements, but something that I noticed was they all have fire moons.
That's really, really crazy.
Right? And then their ascendants, let's see.
What was?
We have a Virgo rising, a Scorpio rising, and an Aquarius rising. So, really interesting. Just looking at their charts overall.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into Lynette?
Yeah, let's go. So, Lynette Squeaky Fromm is such even though she was not involved in any of the actual killings, she's been an instrumental component of the family, which is why we got to go into her chart much deeper. She's very fascinating. So we're going to start with her childhood. So her parents had a tumultuous relationship.
Okay.
This had a really, really significant impact on her upbringing. This is a huge risk factor for maladjustment, for anyone who grows up with like that tumultuous kind of unstable young life, conflict in the home, conflict between the parents. It makes it very confusing for the child because this is kind of what's modeled to them. So this is a hard way to grow up no matter what. It's not an obstacle that can't be, like, it's not something you can't overcome. It just complicates things and kind of gives you a rougher start to life. It kind of sets you up for having less chance to make like positive social interactions because you're seeing so much negativity, and that's what's modeled and returned back to you in that type of tumultuous way. But considering how she grew up, she was decently well adjusted. She grew up in a middle class family in the suburbs just like the other girls, and they all had that in common. So it's just so interesting, like very average American girl next door, which again was what freaked people out so much with when you look at the violence of these crimes, and you're looking at people writing stuff on the walls in blood of their victims and gruesome stabbings that were just horrific, like absolutely horrific bloodbath, and every single one of them committed these crimes. Like Manson wanted them to all, he said, get their hands dirty. So they're all doing the dirty work, except Squeaky, obviously, who was not chosen to do that. So when she was young, she was described as being quiet and sensitive. She was a very talented dancer. She was voted personality plus by her peers in high school, so people really liked her. Like, she was well liked, well received. Okay. Like, you know, that's awesome. She's
like, got a Libra rising.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And she's adorable.
And a stellium, so
she's adorable when you listen to her talk.
Like, she's a Libra.
If you've never
Mercury,
seen
Libra,
what she looks like
Neptune,
or heard,
Libra.
Okay.
Wow.
If you never heard her speak, like, she's real cute. Like,
Mercury's there too. Yeah,
she comes off as like harmless, adorable. She's adorable in this. So, she was really talented, like I said. She was also described as being very troubled, though, when she got older. So she starts, like, skipping school. She starts really struggling in life. And her father had a lot to do with this. So this is probably going to show up all over her chart, major father issues. Like, this is super abusive, especially emotionally.
Yeah, so her Saturn placement is square Mars and Lilith, and opposite Lilith. So we do see a lot of that, like, kind of control and conflict.
So this is really sad. Her father legit stopped talking to her for 3 straight years while she lived there.
Sun conjunct South Node conjunct Mercury. Wow. Absent in speech.
Yeah, feel free to just kind of like chime in because we're talking about just Squeaky right now.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah, and it kind of like, when this happens in any relationship, whether it's parent-child, whether it's romantic, whether it's siblings, this not speaking and unacknowledgement is called stonewalling, and it is one of the most damaging types of emotional abuse that exists. It actually is known to cause more psychological damage than physical abuse, because this literally sends the message, you are dead to me. So basically giving someone the silent treatment has more of a damaging effect than like name calling or verbal fighting, because when you're doing that, you're engaging. You're engaging with them and getting a response. To get nothing and receive nothing is literally like pretending you're dead. And the worst part of this, she never knew why. No idea why her father rejected her to this degree. So if a message had to be passed between her and her father, Squeaky's mom was the middleman, which is really awful. Like, that, it upsets me that a mother would participate in that and allow it and facilitate it that way. That would hurt me, I think, as well. I'd be like, my mom is like basically approving of this. So it really hurt her a lot to deal with it. There were several instances where where people were witnessing her self-harming. So she was self-harming in public and in private, but to self-harm in front of people, trigger warning, I'm going to talk about a specific instance of self-harm that really, really drives it home, like that level of pain that she was experiencing. 'Cause this is just intense. So one specific occasion, she used a staple gun, and she just shot it methodically all the way up her arm.
Whoa.
And never flinched. Like, that's fucking intense. Yeah. She was actually the second member to ever join Manson's clan. So she was like one of the OGs, like OG followers of Manson after her parents kicked her out when she was 19. So she met Charles Manson one day. She was walking down the road, just aimlessly walking down the road. He pulls up in his black bus, rolls down the window, takes a look at her and says, this is direct quote, your parents threw you out, didn't you?
Whoa.
He looks at her and says, your parents threw you out, didn't you? And she was so convinced that he was psychic and a genius because of this. Wow. So she hopped in, which it was obvious back then. A young girl walking down the streets alone. Yeah. He pulls up and says, your parents threw you out, huh? Like, that's an obvious guess, you know what I mean? Given the time. So, but it made her think he's this prophet.
Yeah, like it was so amazing.
He's this genius. So she also really saw him as a father figure after all that rejection from her own father. She's 19, he's 32, 33. Like, she sees him in this fatherly way the entire time. She felt unconditional love within the family, and she felt it from Manson as well. So she was getting this family experience. She was so rejected by her biological family that this felt so loving. It felt more like home than anywhere else she had lived. And she was one of his most devoted followers, if not the most. So now we're going to talk about her nickname, which is obviously Squeaky. Mm-hmm. We've used it several times.
Squeaky, Squeaky.
So they called her this because she often squeaked when George Spahn, the gross old man who owned the ranch, would pinch her thigh.
Oh, I don't like that at all. Oh,
super gross.
Oh, I don't like it.
Super gross.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Super gross. Oh my God. That's how she got her nickname. And that's the only nickname that she ever had. That one stuck. Okay, so after the crimes were committed and the majority of the family was arrested, this is amazing, Squeaky led a demonstration outside the courthouse with the rest of Manson's followers. So they're like sitting on the curb fucking singing and protesting, and she handled all communication with the media. She did a ton of interviews. It was wild. You have to see it. She sort of just kept everything going. Like, she was always this den mother kind of, that's how everybody describes her, as very matron, like motherly, mother hen. And she's teeny tiny. She definitely doesn't look like a mom. She's young. She's little. She's soft-spoken and sweet. Like, she has a sweet quality to her.
Libra energy, okay?
I like really, I feel that so hard for her because she's like just so pleasant. I like, even though she was involved in all this, like, she's adorable.
And you said she was handling communications and
stuff?
Yep,
all the communication.
Her moon was in Gemini, along with Pallas, so able to make those decisions. And
because she's just doing all this on the outside, you know? Like, she's kind of just taking it upon herself to keep it all going in Manson's honor.
Yep, that's a very Gemini moon.
Also, she was extremely upset when the girls, she calls them the girls, they all call each other the girls in all the interviews, which is really interesting. So when Susan, Leslie, and Patricia began to publicly denounce Charles Manson after the court, after all the things went down, they started saying they believed he was a con artist. So this really, really upset Lynette, Squeaky. She did not like this at all. She was still extremely devoted. So devoted, in fact, that this is insane. She tried to assassinate former President Gerald Ford in Manson's honor on September 5th, 1975. She showed up at Sacramento's Capitol Park dressed in a red robe, armed with a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, but there was no round in the chamber. So she points a gun at the president. She's immediately restrained by Secret Service. Yeah. I mean, they do not fuck around. They probably, like, tackle this tiny girl, like, you know what I mean? But she did manage to say a few sentences to the on-scene cameras while she was being handcuffed and, like, hauled away. She emphasized that the gun didn't go off. She told reporters that she had deliberately ejected the round from the weapons chamber before she even left her house that morning. So, yeah, but that turned out to be true. Investigators did find a round in her bathroom floor. So this whole thing was fucking stupid. It was all for, like, show. I don't know what. Actually, I do know what her point was. Okay. I'll get to her point. All right. Yeah. We'll get into her psyche, but it just kind of like looking at this, you're going, what? What's the point of all this? She refused to cooperate with her own defense team during trial. And she just said that she was not determined to kill the guy. Direct quote. Not determined to kill the guy. Talking about President Gerald Ford. She added that she came to get life. Not just my life, but clean air, healthy water, and respect for creatures in creation. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. It feels like she was trying to be where the family was, and like she wanted to be like in prison, and like I felt like she was kind of seeking that and did something that she knew would guarantee she didn't have to commit a violent act. She wasn't intending to commit a violent act. She committed a public display of devotion to go to prison like everybody else.
Wow.
It was like her way of getting her hands dirty without getting her hands dirty, so that she could prove, like, pretty much like, you didn't choose me for the murders, you didn't choose me as a soldier.
But I could have done it.
But I'm still a soldier.
And I can do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would kill for you, here I am. But, like, she really just wanted more so to make the demonstration. She was not violent at all. This is why he did not send her on the missions. He did not believe she could carry it out with her personality.
So if anything, she got proved that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. As devoted as she was to him, she was not violent. He did not choose her for these missions.
Wow.
Specifically omitted her from these crimes, which is wild. But obviously, she's convicted of this crime. You can't try to assassinate the president and not fucking go to prison.
She didn't have a fire moon, so like it just wasn't going to work out for her.
Everybody else had
only fire moon girls get to go murder people.
Basically. Basically. And then... So, this is really more interesting stuff. She's an interesting being. Like, you have got to watch her talk and interact. Like, you need to see her.
I will go watch after this, yeah.
It's great. Like, she's real cute. Like, you want to like her. It's weird. Wow. It's all that Libra energy. Like, you want to like her.
Yes.
So, in 1979... Squeaky Fromm was transferred out of one facility for attacking a fellow inmate with a hammer. So, you're seeing violence in prison. Not on the outside, but in this other incarcerated world, you are seeing...
That's where it comes out.
Yes, a violent side of her come out. This is kind of fun. But on December 23rd, 1987, she escaped from federal prison in West Virginia in an attempt to meet Manson. So he had testicular cancer at this time, so she was really like, wanted to go see him. She was captured 2 days later and incarcerated in Fort Worth, Texas after that. She first became eligible for parole in 2005, and she was entitled by federal law to a mandatory hearing after 30 years. So they, you get the sentence 30 years into it, they're required to have this court hearing, take it to the board, blah, blah, blah. They review your case, make a determination. She was granted parole in July 2008 because she didn't have violent crimes. Like, she didn't actually, she had the one situation in jail and she did escape, and that's why she wasn't released, actually. So even though
Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
So her 7th house cusp, which is like legal stuff and all of that, has a trine to her Mars placement, which would be like about, harmony with legality and like aggression. So like she wasn't that aggressive, so like...
Yeah.
But also like 12th house, which would be more like imprisonment and stuff. She has Venus there, so it's almost like loving, caring, like... Yeah. And also, so after her, she was granted parole, but they couldn't release her because they had to add extra time for her prison escape. They had to, so she would have been out. They granted her parole, but she's had another infraction. So, but she was actually officially released from parole from the Federal Medical Center on August 14th, 2009, and she moved to New York after that. And that's where she lives with her boyfriend in a house decorated entirely with skulls, and I approve. I approve of this decor. In a 2019 televised interview, Squeaky Fromm had this to say about Charles Manson. We're going to end her segment on this direct quote because it's so much. Are you ready? Yep.
Was I in love with Charlie? Yeah. I still am. Let's chart this bitch.
Wow.
Is that not the best?
It's really something.
It's really something. This is in 2019. She's still in love with him.
Wow.
How insane.
Wow.
How insane is that?
Okay.
All right, Lynette, let's go.
Lynette was born October 22nd, 1948. So this is right on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. I do not want arguments in the comments on exactly what day is what, the cutoff is, whatever. On the chart, she is 29-degree Libra. Okay?
Okay.
Out of 30 degrees. So right at the end. There it is. She also has, like I said, Mercury retrograde in Libra. She has Vesta in Libra. She has Neptune in Libra. She has her ascendant in Libra. Lots of Libra. We've got a little conjunction down here in Gemini with Pallas retrograde, the moon. Also Uranus is right here, but it's technically on the 0 degree of Cancer, so it's still real close. It's still right in the with the group there, and that's all in her 9th house. This does make some trines up to all of the things going on in Libra, an air trine, and let's see, she doesn't have any like major placements. She has her 5th house cusp in Aquarius, so there could be like, well, this was like a happy time of her life, like all the Aquarius stuff, the Aquarius element to like the culty stuff, but it's the only placement up in Aquarius. It's not, her part of fortune, but I'm not really getting into that. If there was a grand trine, that would be it there. And then there's also let's see, she's got her Mars in Sagittarius, like I was saying. And she also has Jupiter in Sagittarius. Her North Node is Taurus. South Node Scorpio. Her South Node is real close to her Sun, which is what I was talking about earlier with like the father and the on the South Node making it an absentee type thing, and then having Mercury there as well, making it about language and speech and not talking to her.
It's so awful. Like that still really bothers me so much as a father, just living in the same house with his child for 3 years and not acknowledging their existence and like purposely making sure they're never I hate that. And the
controlling thing with the Saturn aspects, like I said. So you see how like she was really susceptible to everything for sure. All of the girls have either Chiron either in Scorpio, all of them except for one. One of them has it in Sagittarius. So Lynette, Patricia, and Susan have Chiron in Scorpio, which is a lot of that energy of like being deceived and stuff, and being more susceptible to that on your Chiron journey, your trauma journey. And also like sexuality stuff. And then
a lot of that going on.
Leslie though has it in Sagittarius, so it's kind of more like she wasn't able to like expand her horizons more so than like that was the bigger trauma on her end, which is interesting. But Lynette Squeaky does have it in Scorpio, so we see a lot of that like kind of abuse cycle type of theme, that scorpionic one. Let's see. Lilith in Pisces. Okay. The way this would bring like a self-empowerment type of thing through this like lens of like the godlike element of the cult. Also through like this sense of boundless emotions, like there's no boundaries, we're just all feeling, and like kind of
there were no boundaries.
She probably was really feeling that ego death stuff with all her Libra placements. She also has, when you have a Libra rising, all of your houses are essentially flipped from their rulers. So instead of Aries ruling the first house, like in her chart, it's in charge of the 7th house, which is the opposite of what Aries would rule. So so the shadow and the ego is in the sign of not having an ego, and then vice versa. Like your shadow gets to the ego energy like that, like Aries, like fuel. Yeah. And then your identity gets this kind of like hollow, shadowy stuff. So it's one of the things that people talk about when like it makes sense when people talk about Libra energy having a hard time making like a strong decision. Like it's kind of that kind of thing.
Opposition.
Like there's so much. You're kind of like looking at yourself through the reflection of other people. You're kind of balancing yourself out with partnerships. That's why it's also associated with partnerships. So I think a lot of her, like, she probably doesn't. She has a hard time having a strong identity, like, and like seeing it herself without someone else around.
So that's why she like loved the family and loved. That was really.
And then with the 7th house with Aries, like you kind of see why, like in a partnership, it got to be like this really, like warrior-y, fiery energy, but yeah, her. Trying to see what else I want to mention off of here.
Yeah, we have one more to cover after this. We'll look at Tex.
I think that the girls also had this like Saturn coming out of Leo into Virgo. And I think that having like the structure of where Manson had his like Neptune and Mars placement and like all of his Leo crap. So I think a lot of his like really
you're so funny.
A lot of his like, oh, I'm gonna put these worldviews on you and these actions and this control, like it really fit with their structure of life, which was right there in that same area on the chart. So we see that with her too. She also has Pluto and Ceres in Leo where he did. So I see why she feels so like her foundation of love is like so similar. She's vibing with it. Like she's really comforted by him.
Mm-hmm. He's like a father. He's like a father she never had.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's really.
And she likes. It's also comforting with her South Node in Scorpio. It's like your comfort zone. It's what your past. It's what you feel used to, and that's where he's got Jupiter and Mercury and Sun and Venus. Like it's very comforting and like nice for her. I think they also would have had a Venus sextile looking at it. Because hers is in Virgo, so they would have had this Venus sextile Venus thing going on where like really like caring, supportive energy like for her.
Yeah.
You see, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that with the girls, but like definitely with her.
She is by far the most devoted follower, you know.
Saying the word devoted, Vesta and Libra on Neptune, like, yeah, she needed this kind of like visionary type thing to be devoted to.
Wow. From the first time he spoke to her, she was like pretty much devoted.
Yeah.
So there was like an intense
that godlike
energy.
thing.
Yeah, between them. All right, we're gonna move on to Charles Tex Watson, the Manson boy. Do your thing. Do it. Say it. Do your thing.
The Manson boy.
I was gonna say I can't remember how it
goes. Manson boy.
So yeah, we got our Manson boy, another Sagittarius, which is crazy. So wait, he's also born December 2nd. Do they have the same birthday? Is he the same birthday as one of the girls? He's the same birthday.
May 7th.
Oh,
December
1 day
3rd.
apart. Well, he's the day before Patricia Crumwinkle. But they're 2 years apart.
Yeah.
Okay, the birthday really stuck out. I was like, wait a second. Another Sagittarius. The reason they called him Tex, he was born in Dallas, Texas. He was the youngest of 3 children. Like the girls, he grew up going to church. He was an honor student. He was editor of the school paper. He was the captain of the football team. He's a very normal kid. He set a state track record for jumping hurdles in high school. In September 1964, he moved to go to college. He went to the University of North Texas. He became a member of Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity, seeking community. You see a theme of seeking community and brotherhood and like that type of...
They want it.
Yeah, it's something that was very much he was searching for, similar to the girls, but his path It's very different. It feels very idealistic so far. But in January 1967, when he was 22, he started working at an airport as a baggage handler. So he got free airline tickets as a perk, and he decided to start traveling. Big Sagittarius energy. I work for a fucking airport.
Big Sag.
Yeah, big Sag energy.
Oh, well, don't worry. He has a stellium there, and he is a Sagittarius.
That makes all the sense. So he got involved with the Manson family after he visited one of his fraternity brothers who had lived in L.A. Because he's like, I can go wherever I want. I'm going to visit my friend in L.A., like, gonna go on out there. So he quickly became interested in using psychedelic drugs. He enjoyed the music and the lifestyle, just kind of like that whole late 1960s, early 1970s kind of vibe. Like he was vibing on that energy just like everybody else was in that generation. Like this was something they were all feeling collectively, was not uncommon at the time. But it was a step down a bad path for him from where he was, you know, like this is a kind of a sharp turn.
It's like, oh, we're doing this now.
Because he was
a pivot.
Yeah, he was seeking all this higher learning, other Sagittarius things. Like he's seeking all this, like I'm going to school, I'm going to higher learning, I'm doing all these things, taking that, but also it's like he got distracted or diverted or something. Kind
U-turn. Like, yes.
He took a different turn on this path, and like I said, he was one of the very few male followers of Charles Manson. He played a huge instrumental role in the murders both before and during the times that the crimes were committed. So he was 24 at this point. Trigger warning. He actually gave the girls murder lessons to help prepare them for what they were going to do, for their mission, their big mission that they're doing. He showed them exactly how to stab a person, how to make the wounds more impactful by bringing the knife up at the end. Direct quotes from the girls, because you would cut up more stuff that way. Yeah, he was super involved with the actual murders. He either personally shot or stabbed every single one of the victims at both the Tate and the LaBianca murders. Out of everyone, he inflicted the most fatal or non-survivable injuries, extremely violent. And we're talking with these murders, the victims were stabbed, some of them over 100 times. This was a bloodbath. This was insanely violent. This was a mess when they were trying to murder 5 people at once in a chaotic stabbing. Sharon Tate begging for her life and the life of her unborn child and begging them to spare her, and they're laughing and they're being really over the top ridiculous. Kind of reminds me of Columbine with the behavior of the over the top, the theatrics of the entire group and the dramatics and making it extra witchy. And that's a direct quote of Manson told them to make it extra witchy, which is why they wrote in blood. Like, there's a theatrical level involved here. It's extremely violent. Yes, that's a very Leo thing to do. And Charles Tex Watson was just the most violent of them. So he needed to be there. You know, if they'd turned the girls loose by themselves, even though it was still like messy, as Manson described it, like he knew that the job would at least get done if he sent Tex to do this with the girls and to train them and kind of get them revved up for it. So actually, this is a fun thing from one of the documentaries. When they were heading out on their first killing, the first night, August 8th, because these murders were one night apart. So they killed, the Tate murders were one night, very next night the LaBianca murders. So they were trying to like
get it a bunch done.
Yes, get a lot done, get it all done at once, create a big public issue, like people to really notice it and be scared. So as they're leaving in their vehicle to head to the scene, somebody in the family asked where they were going as they were leaving the commune. One of the girls said, "We're going to kill some motherfucking pigs."
Of course.
So they're in a mood, they're a vibe, they're a whole mood together as a group. But just Tex in general was extremely violent. After the first set of murders was committed, and the second set, like he was super involved in that. He actually fled the ranch like 2 months later and went back to Texas. So he tried to avoid all of the getting caught, all of the court stuff, and he did avoid it for a while, which is pretty interesting. It bought him some time, but he bought extradition back to California for 9 months, so he was able to avoid this whole thing for just not a long time, but a little bit. They brought him in. whenever they brought him into custody in the state of California, he did some extreme demonstrations of protest. He stopped talking and he stopped eating. He ended up losing 55 pounds and started regressing to like a catatonic state. So super extreme.
Wow.
Super extreme. These are all things that I picked out because I thought maybe you could see it on the chart. Mm-hmm. He was admitted to the state hospital for a 90-day evaluation period to determine whether or not he was fit to stand trial. This is a competency hearing is what this is known as. So he stayed in this facility until February of 1971 when he was finally, deemed to be competent. Just really intense stuff to kind of cause these delays. He's causing all of these own delays. Like he avoided punishment, and once he's in there, he's like finding a way to be in control of it. It feels like a major control issue, especially with the not eating, not talking. Like, I'm in control, and now I'm going to go to this other facility. I'm not even going to be in prison. I'm going to be in the hospital.
Wow.
Like, he's big time taking charge of this entire thing. Yeah. But on October 12th, 1971, he is convicted on 7 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. Everybody's still in prison, except for, I believe it was Susan, who already passed away. So, that is the Manson family overview. So, we're going to cover Tex's chart, and then we're going to wrap it up and get into our Patreon episode where we are going to do Eruca, Charles Manson, Sinistry reading. And I can't fucking wait. So, get on our Patreon for that. You do not want to miss it. I can't wait. Anyway, back to Charles Watson. I'm amped.
I know. I feel I have a lot of mixed feelings.
I'm gonna enjoy it a lot.
Okay. All right. So, Tex was born. Another Charles though. Like, especially with me saying about my girl. Okay. Tex was born December 2nd. 1945 in
Same
Dallas,
birthday
Texas,
as Brittney Spears.
At 9:05 p.m. He is a Sagittarius with also Mercury retrograde, Ceres, Vesta, South Node, and all there, and Pallas. He is a Scorpio moon. Moon conjunct Venus in Scorpio, which we see that like Venus and Scorpio devotion for Manson right there. And his feelings are all wrapped up in Manson, obviously. And a lot of his like sense of empowerment too. He's got Lilith there. And this is all in the 4th house. Like, it feels like home to him, stuff like that. He is a Leo rising. His first planet is Mars. So having all the fire and Mars there on your ascendant is definitely going to give you that like most aggressive vibe, most violent vibe, most aggressive, most like almost like showboaty.
Yeah, I was going to say there's showmanship involved in this entire thing. I was going to say showmanship.
Yeah. So when we look at that U-turn we were talking about, where he like took a shift in his life, he was doing all the Sag things and then he shifted. So with his South Node in Sagittarius, that is going to be like the beginning portion of his life, all the Sagittarius stuff. And then he does a fast U-turn right at the 29th degree, 59th second of Sagittarius. And he shifts to that of Gemini. And when you have... When you're into like the Gemini energy, then you're getting a lot of this, I'm going to teach something. I'm going to talk and be like part of my little family group and like, like my close little friends and all of that stuff. So I think it's really interesting having that shift in his life. I think it is represented with the way that he shifted. Also like, we're not going to like go on this whole journey anymore. Now we're going to be in this little group of people.
Yeah, we're going to join a commune instead of being a world traveler. Yeah. Like, we're going to join a small community. Like that's so interesting.
It's similar enough, but like a different, like on the Gemini side. Yeah. And also interesting, it is in his 11th house, so you get a lot of that like very like community vibe too, like society stuff. He's got Uranus there. Which I can't remember what you said, but there was something that made me really think, Uranus, yeah, it's right there.
I don't remember what I said specifically that could have tied to that. But,
right. And then he has, she's being so... Okay, so Tex's Saturn placement is what I was looking at a lot with the like court stuff and the like prison stuff. Okay, so his Saturn is in the 12th house in Cancer.
Oh,
retrograde.
Okay.
It is opposing his 7th house cusp. So that shows like all these, Saturn has a lot to do with timing and restriction and like structuring and like all of that stuff. So him like putting all of this, these delays and trying to like make the structure work harder, or like, you know, making things, also having it be retrograde, like literally slowing Saturn down, like is fascinating. But like having it aspecting his 7th house and being in his 12th house, where like once he gets into prison, like he's being really restrictive and he's like trying to orchestrate the timing of things, and he's trying to be like, you know,
he's trying to be in control of it. And also like he's actually trying to put himself in a different space, because he knows that doing extreme things like stopping eating, stopping talking, having dramatic weight loss, like impacting his health, they're gonna have to take him out of that prison setting and put him in a hospital, which is a way better conditions. It's not great. State hospitals are by no means like a fucking 5-star hotel, but it is very much like a better environment than prison. Like you're kind of getting taken care of.
Right.
Like
it's not prison.
It's not prison. And
and his 6th house, which is where you see a lot of that health stuff come through. Like he has Pholus there. Okay, it's in Capricorn. He has Pholus there. It's more of that Saturn ruler. Saturn rules Capricorn. That Saturn like structure, putting all of that timing and stuff into that, and it's like Pholus, like let's be really extreme about it. Let's be really extra about it. And on the chart, Pholus does also oppose his Saturn in the 6th house. So it is very leaning on like health and being dramatic with it, and like, you know, making it almost kind of like antagonizing it health wise. Like definitely is a thing on his chart. He's got some sextiles to that Pholus placement, which I thought were interesting. They're to his moon and Venus and Pallas. Like it's very like comforting for him to exercise this system on his chart. He also may become kind of known for it in a, like maybe not fully, but like partially. He's probably more known for kind of like the aggressive stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
He's got midheaven in Aries.
Oh, that makes sense.
But yeah, what I was looking at here is that he's got Pholus making this grand square or grand cross on his chart. I always say it backwards. He's got the grand cross on his chart with Pholus, the midheaven, Saturn, and his little conjunction in Libra, which is Jupiter, Chiron, and Juno. So he gets, it's like this like big stressed like trying to make opportunities out of the stress and the timing and the health stuff. It just kind of all like fits in that.
Making opportunities out of the stress. That is like, that really resonates with everything in his chart.
And it's not like the main thing off of his midheaven, but like it is there.
And that's, you definitely see that with, specifically with like the legality stuff. He finds a way to turn that into like he's still in charge. Like he's using it in a way that's like still serving him somehow.
Yes.
Which that's really kind of impressive, honestly.
It is.
Like, it's kind of,
his midheaven also has some trines over to his Sagittarius stuff, like Mercury and Ceres and Vesta. So he is known for like talking and speaking and being devoted to, and being in like that caring system of like really going all the way with that stuff, like where he was with the with Manson. Manson also had Vesta in Sagittarius. It's like it's something.
It's compatible. Anything else you see on his chart that you want to talk about? Or are we kind of...
He, you know, Neptune moves slow. He also has it in Libra like the girls did.
It's like a generational situation.
Yeah. But, you know, they were younger than him, so it's also...
Right.
You know, he kind of did span over, like, different kind of generational planet placements. Yeah. Because Manson's Neptune, again, was in Virgo. So it hadn't moved into Libra yet. So he was able to kind of take advantage of that. With getting into younger people, so... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's Tex's chart. I think those were the highlights off of his. Again, if you guys want to see all these charts, they are on our Patreon.
Yes, get on our Patreon. So that is the Manson family we covered. Manson, we covered 3 of the main girls. We covered Squeaky Fromm. We covered Tex Watson. We really did a lot in this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you think. We would love a 5-star rating. If you are still here, like, seriously, you enjoyed it. Just fucking admit it. And give us that thought. We earned it. No. I hope we've earned it. Definitely really helps us. It really just helps other people find the podcast. So share it with somebody you think might like it. Help us out. Doesn't cost you anything. It takes like 2 seconds. Give us 5 stars, give us a like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, all those things. If you want more content, if you are like, I really want more episodes, I feel like I need more things, get on Patreon. We have 3 tiers. You can choose, you know, different levels, different monthly costs, and we have all kinds of cool perks. We have merchandise, we have all sorts of stuff. So go to darkalignmentpodcast.com. Follow us on social media because we're a good time. We try to make fun shit available to you at all times on our story. Like, we try to have fun, engaging posts. Us individually too. Follow us, connect with us. We love hearing from you guys. We love episode suggestions. That is something we always appreciate. And until next time, please remember to chart all the bitches in your life and stay awesome, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.